Welcome to Living 4D with Paul Chek. Today's guest is Jason Pickard.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Living 4D with Paul Chek. Today, I have a very, very special surprise for you. We're going to talk about finding soul. And we're going to talk about finding soul with someone who has truly found his soul. And it has not come easy. There has been ups and there has been downs. There's been great rewards and great losses. There's been great pain and great success, sadness and joy. That's my longest running client and one of the best friends I've ever had in my whole life, Jason Pickard. Welcome, Jason.
Great to be here.
Jason's been coaching with me regularly without missing a beat for over 10 years. We've seen a lot together, haven't we?
We've done it all.
We are going to find some soul right now. Here we go.
Wonka tonka tonka Sheila. Wonka tonka tonka Sheila. Pila maya yelo hey. Chanu pa wonkan cha maya kuelo hey. Pila maya yelo hey. Wiko choni wa maya kuyelo. Pila maya ye. Pila maya yelo hey. Wonka tonka tonka Sheila. Wonka tonka tonka Sheila. Pila maya yelo hey. Chanu pa wonkan cha maya kuelo hey. Pila maya yelo hey. Wiko choni wa maya kuelo. Pila maya ye. Pila maya yelo hey. Yeah.
A whole great spirit. Woo! Finding soul with me and my buddy. And boy, have we found some soul together. Woo! To start off, I think, your story is very interesting, especially because you hit this paradoxical situation of being super, super successful in your career and very financially abundant, but also equally empty on the inside. And, you found that no amount of money would fill that emptiness. And you made a hell of a transition at that certain point in your career, which was scary to do, but we'll sneak up on that. I'd love to, for everybody listening, to if you could share your background and how your life began and how it unfolded and how you progressively got into being a trader and then had this massive success, yet found yourself really uncomfortable in your body and your existence.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, by the way, what the hell were you singing there? It sounded great, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what he's saying.
That was a Lakota pipe song. A thank you, great spirit song. It just felt appropriate.
Well, here's the pipe.
Being filled with gratitude
The
today.
peace pipe, baby.
Yeah.
Cheers. We do the peace pipe here.
So I grew up in New York, and my first loves coming into this world were drumming and magic.
Yeah.
And, that was just not inspired by anybody, but it just my soul's inspiration to pick up a drum from a very young age. But like most children, we get pushed into the modern world and enculturation, and I very soon realized that my parents expected me to focus on being a successful person, not necessarily a magician or a drummer.
Yeah.
And around the ages of 10, 11, 12, I was fortunate enough, because my dad was in Wall Street, to get exposed to some really incredible financial people, particularly Paul Tudor Jones, who is known as the best trader in the world.
Yeah.
When I was 12 years old, I was going to family picnics and meeting these people and just really inspired by their world. So around that time, I got really focused on wanting to be a successful trader. I really thought that was my ticket to happiness and success. And I really loved the competitiveness and the excitement of it. And so I focused primarily on that. When I went to college in the University of Virginia, I only cared about trading. And when I left college in 2002, I went right into that world and very quickly became successful. I was working on this very new kind of trading called weather trading, where I was working with meteorologists, trying to figure out how the weather impacted different commodity markets. And by the age of 26, I was already a millionaire. I was working now for Paul Tudor Jones, who was my childhood hero. I was ranked top 30 traders under 30 in the world.
Wow.
I was becoming the youngest partner ever at this, like the Yankees of hedge funds. But I was 330 pounds.
Wow.
And I was nearly dead.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of you. I remember the first time you showed me a picture of you, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, we can post one for the viewers, but it was pretty gnarly. I was in horrible shape. I mean, just remembering what it was what it feels like to be that heavy, not being able to fit into your clothes, the sweatiness, the lethargy, it's just a really, really tough way to be.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I realized, what the hell am I doing this for? What am I going to do with all this money if I don't have any health, if I don't have any family, if I don't have any relationships? So around that time, I met Chaba Lucas, who's a mutual friend of ours.
One of my, actually, he's a Chek level 1 practitioner, but he took training with me way back, I think, in the late 90s on Vancouver Island.
Yeah. So it was quite interesting that in the middle of New York City here, I meet randomly a Chek professional who had How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy in his gym.
Wow, good.
And he had this like very dungeon, Rocky in Russia, old school gym in the basement of a building in the financial district. And I just went in there and just ground it out for 2 years. And I just, blood, sweat, and tears every single day, and I went from 330 pounds to 160 pounds in about 2 years, purely on exercise. And it's actually quite funny because Chaba was quite impressed with my, transformation, and he wanted to kind of show off to you what he had done with me. So we made this video of me working out in the gym, and I'm doing jump squats and walking lunges and cable pulls and all these things. We send this video to you and say, look at this stud. He just lost 170 pounds. And you wrote back, he just went from soggy white bread to a burnt piece of toast. Yeah. And he needs to take 2 years off from exercise.
Yeah.
Hearing that was such a shock to my ego because, exercise was my whole life. And I realized at that moment, I just really had transferred my addiction, food and excess and all of that, to something that was more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
But it was still a real serious addiction. And that's when the whole inner process started for me, going inside. And, obviously that's kind of was the kickoff of our work together, which has changed my life.
Well, it's funny that you felt an insult from my video, but then you wanted to work with me. How did that transpire? Most people don't hire the guy that insults them.
Well, I've always had this insatiable thirst for learning. And I could tell in that moment that you had something to offer me that, I couldn't get anywhere else. Chaba and I had sort of reached the end of our path together of learning. And I said, well, if this guy thinks I'm on the wrong path, I want to learn more. I really wanted to be healthy and I really wanted to be a whole person. And so you and I started working together virtually. And it wasn't long before I realized that you had so much to offer. And, I came and visited you in about 2010.
What happened for you on the inside? Like, what was the big shift for you?
Yeah, I think this is, we've talked about this, but this is sort of what Joseph Chilton Pearce talks about the teacher-student or the guru-student relationship. Finding you was finding like a parent figure. In some ways, I have a wonderful father and mother, as you know, but it was like the bond that we had together was just something that touched me so deeply. You offered to me an education that, despite going through great schools and going to a top university, I had never received.
Yeah.
I never learned, how to take care of myself and how to live, how to eat, how to move, how to sleep, how to think. And you just opened my eyes to all this incredible knowledge that you had gained. And to me, it was just like my soul just was dying for that, thirsting for that.
Yeah, I think for me too, obviously I've had thousands and thousands of students. I think there's something like 60,000 people now that have gone through some level of the Chek program. But, every teacher is looking for a good student, right? And I think what was really exciting for me is you listened and you practiced it.
Yeah.
And, nothing's more draining for a guy like me than feeling like a professional babysitter and having to say the same stuff over and over and over again. It's just like Groundhog Day. And I think when I had the beauty of somebody that would listen and then go do it and then come back and ask intelligent questions. In fact, I was thinking about this just this weekend through our ceremony together. You've actually spent more time with me personally than anyone in the world.
What an honor.
Even more than my most highly trained instructors, and a lot more. I mean, if you go through level 4 and you did it all with me, you'd do basically 5 weeks of training with me. So if you said that was 40 hours a week, 4 times 5, what's about 200 hours, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you and I have spent thousands of hours.
Yeah.
together.
Well, we were doing, at least 2 to 3 visits a year for 4 or 5 days, all in. And plus we were
doing
virtually talking every week to 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
we were conversing every day. I was sending you 4 doctor journals every single day.
Yeah.
And and that was an incredible way to learn. I would write to you a journal every single day about Dr. Diet, Quiet, Movement, and Happiness, and what was going on in my life, my morning heart rate, what I was eating.
Yeah.
And you were just giving me constant feedback. So
Yeah, that was important, and I've done that with many clients. But here's an example of the difference between you and a lot of people. You filled the forms out. I can't even give you a list. There's not enough paper for me to write a list of all the people that desperately needed daily guidance, right? I don't have enough space in my schedule to do a daily session with people, even if they can afford it. So I would say to people, look, here's your basic 4-doctor practice. Write down everything you're eating. Write down what you did for exercise. Write down what you're doing for creating happiness for yourself. Tell me what time you went to bed, how your sleep quality was. Tell me how many times a day you're pooping, what your poops look like, what they smell like, do they float, all the stuff that's in How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Because I have to teach people to start paying attention to what their body's telling them and what they're doing to themselves, right? So input, output. I ate this and this happened. I stayed up late and this happened. I skipped exercise and this happened. Or I over-exercised and this happened. But it always boggles my mind how people will go to doctors, take dangerous drugs, get multiple surgeries, but they won't write down what they're eating or, the most basic things that you have to pay attention to, or you never know how you ended up on the operating table to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it was just like, finally, I've got a real student. Now, I have had other good students. I don't want to be unfair, but none of them as disciplined as you are. And I also have had the privilege of knowing other teachers you've worked with.
Right.
And they've all said, Jason's the best student I've ever had. And I say, well, join the club. He's my best student too. And I've also warned many, because I've referred you to Chek professionals all over the world when you're traveling or to work with people in New York. And I always warn them, don't screw around with this guy because he knows more about what you're doing than you probably do. And they always giggle. They think, oh, that's, bullshit, Paul. But they all found out, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
Make sure you do the assessments properly. Make sure you teach the exercises properly. Make sure you're paying attention. Don't talk on cell phones. Don't do any of the things I taught you not to do. And inevitably, well, they find out that the student knows more than the teacher.
Yeah. Well, like you, I think, we're both not here to waste time, right?
No.
I mean, life is short, and, I personally want to get the most out of it. And for me, meeting you was like this reawakening. It was like a remembering. It's almost like something that I had known in a past life that I had forgotten. And now I was reawakening to this truth. And, I've always taken to teachers of trying to find the best people in the world in their particular teachings or in their particular departments, and trying to extract the most amount of information about it and trying to integrate into my own life to grow.
And you have, and we're going to talk about that because you've worked with some incredible people. I mean, in the 10 plus years we've been together, you have rubbed shoulders with the giants on many levels. And that's been fun for me too, because, I sort of built a foundation with you. I said, Jason, these are the things you got to have, because without this in place, all the gurus in the world aren't going to help you. In fact, you'll find many gurus out there that are sick people. Osho was a sick person. The list is long.
Just walk into any doctor's office.
Right. And so, I wanted to make sure you were grounded in foundation principles, because that's what life is about. I mean, you and I have studied the soil and farming and the importance of food and water and breathing and exercise and meditation and Tai Chi, and you've done multiple gongs with me, and and you've done lots of gongs with other people.
And that's the beauty of the Chek system.
Yeah,
I think is that in your teaching, you were not limiting me to saying you only have to, learn my stuff, right? You exposed me to the world. You exposed me to many types of meditation, many types of Tai Chi and Qigong. All the world religions, Ken Wilber, art, the list goes on.
Yeah, we've done a lot of art together.
Yeah, and you've always encouraged me to explore other people and to incorporate it. But, the Chek principles, they're the foundation for anything else.
Yeah.
If you want to go and study art therapy or music or psychology or philosophy or religion, but you don't know how to go to sleep on time, you don't know how to eat, you don't know how to drink water, you don't know how to poop, you don't know how to exercise, you don't know how to play.
You become a smart, sick person.
You become an academic.
Yeah. Yeah, a professor that talks about things that they don't do.
Piled higher and deeper.
Yeah, PhD, progressive head death, sadly. But at least the neat thing was I was really excited when I saw a statistical report on the people that had not gotten vaccinated for COVID, and PhDs were the class of people that were the most skeptical and apprehensive. And I think the other one was Hispanics and Black people. And I said, okay, the PhDs at least can think rationally, and the Hispanics and Black people have been lied to so much and experimented on so much, they're wise to be hesitant.
They have a deep distrust, and the PhDs maybe were smart enough to find the real research papers.
Yes. Yeah. You've been through some frickin' tough challenges, man, in our time together. One thing that comes up, and you can share as much about this as you want, but
yeah.
When you were, for a long time, you were a very successful trader. And there's two things that really stick out for me. One, when I taught you to trade with your soul instead of your head, that had quite an interesting impact on your trading. And two, I remember the day you called me and told me how much you lost on a trade one time.
Yeah.
And the stress of that, the amount of money that you had lost, I didn't even have a mindset for how to deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're talking about the amounts of money that I can't even fathom. And, it put you in a really tough situation. So I had to work with you to walk through that. I think I'd like to let you share about what happened when you trade with your soul, but what kind of risks you have to take to operate at that level, because I don't think most people really understand how much stress is in that job.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that helped me the most really was bringing the 4 doctors into that world. So once I learned about the 4 doctors, I was able to incorporate them into what I called the 4 doctors of trading. So, for Dr. Diet,
Yeah.
I started to bring my own food to work.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you have all these people eating this crap food in the cafeteria, cheeseburgers, fries, whatever, the normal stuff you would get. And I'm bringing in, all organic food. I'm bringing in my own water. I'm bringing in my own espresso. I'm setting up feng shui on my desk. I have plants. We had rows and rows of these desks of people. I was on a trading floor with 300 successful people in these long rows of desks. And all of a sudden I made them cut my desk out to put a standing desk in.
Yeah.
So now I'm standing, now I'm sitting on a Swiss ball, now I'm kneeling while I'm working.
Yeah.
I'm taking time to eat my lunch. I'm meditating throughout the day. I'm going into the gym. I'm even incorporating art into my practice. I'm getting to sleep on time, right? And so all of these things were crucial in managing the stresses of that business. Without putting the right stuff into your body, without managing all of your four doctors, you're gonna fall apart, and you're also not going to be able to operate at the highest level.
No,
if you want to be the best at if you want to be the best in the industry, you're not going to put McDonald's oil into your Ferrari, right?
Right.
And so if you want to work at the top level, you have to treat yourself like a temple, and that's something that you taught me how to do.
What was the reaction from the traders? That must have been interesting for them to watch all this going down.
Well, it was really weird for them, and at first they were quite skeptical and looking at me, kind of cross-eyed. But after they saw me, making hundreds of millions of dollars for the firm, they started asking questions. And it wasn't long before, organic food was being incorporated into the office. And all of a sudden, about 5-6 years later, the whole trading floor got renovated and everyone had standing desks.
That's great.
Now, they didn't quite know how to have perfect ergonomics. You'd see people like leaning over their desk and they didn't have the whole setup right. But that's the kind of influence that one person can have.
Yeah.
And when you influence people at that level, you're influencing very successful, powerful people that could have a big impact on the world. So that's really was the silent lover there.
Yeah, it is silent lover and the silent teacher. And that you're bringing up an important point, and I will share a quick story. When I wrote my golf biomechanics manual, all sorts of people came to me and said, "I didn't know you were a golfer." I said, "I'm not. I just know biomechanics, and it doesn't matter what sport you play. And when you understand biomechanics, you can be a high jumper or a swimmer. I know how to break down the biomechanics of human movement, and I have a system, as you know, the primal pattern system, so I can look at any sport. And I've worked with tons of elite golfers with all sorts of problems very successfully. So people said, "Well, why did you write the book then?" I said, "Because golfers and swimmers are the largest sports population in the world. There's no bigger population of people in any sport than golfing and swimming. It's about tied for the number of people swimming and playing golf. The difference is the average income of a golfing family is above $100,000 a year." So I said, I wrote the Golf Biomechanics Manual because golfers will do anything to hit that ball straighter and further.
Yeah.
And including eating organic food, including paying attention to the four doctors. And so most golfers are either owners of businesses or have influential positions in businesses. So the reason I wrote the Golf Biomechanics Manual was because if I could improve their game and they could see what the practices were doing to their game, it would become part of their life and then it would affect their companies. And it did, like dominoes. Many people that came to me for golf problems ended up taking the four doctor concepts, the 6 foundation principles, how to eat, move, and be healthy, buying cases of books off of me and going back to their companies and influencing the whole company. So, there's an example of how if you identify what a person's dream is, remember, if you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis, and then showing them how to do it, they all had the same realization. Wow, if this is doing this good for my golf and making me feel this much better, what would happen if my employees were doing this? And so it had a ripple effect right through the world, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's just a little sort of a side note, to say you are doing it in the trading industry, but I've tried to, this is why I worked for professional sports teams, because I wanted to, get high-level athletes and people like Laird Hamilton, for example, and Gabby Reese came to me in the 90s for coaching advice, and I've been a consultant to them ever since. And, they're very intelligent people. They saw the obviousness of it right away, and there's been, as you know, countless others, but it's been good to be able to find people that have, I found that if a person doesn't have a dream for themselves and for their life, they're pretty much uncoachable.
Yeah, they have no North Star.
They have no compass bearing.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a story because, here I am at, in the Wall Street world, and I'm trading and I'm doing these things, and Paul Tudor Jones, who's a very influential person, is sitting right behind me, seeing the transformation going on inside of me, seeing the transformation in my work. And all of a sudden he's starting a group at the University of Virginia called the Contemplative Sciences Center,
right?
Which is a whole department in a university built on expanding consciousness,
right?
And as he's talking to me, he's saying, "Wow, you really need to be in this group because you know what you're talking about, and a lot of us don't really know these things as well as you do." So the next thing I know, he's flying me down on his private plane to the University of Virginia, and I'm sitting next to Deepak Chopra and Ariana Huffington. And the four of us are there on a plane, and I'm talking to them about the importance of bringing good food into the university and teaching people how to do the 4 doctors, because still at that level, it was just more of an academic thing. Okay, we could have a bunch of courses, we could teach people about resilience, but I'm saying, listen, none of that matters unless we teach them the things that I didn't learn in university.
Right.
I went to university, I learned how to be a successful business person. I didn't learn how to be a successful human being. I didn't learn how to take care of myself. These are the things that should be taught in kindergarten.
Right.
And so, there's just another example of, just trying to do the best you can to improve your life, and then, having an influence on really important people. And I think the thing that you taught me with tracking the 4 doctors is this whole idea of tracking or stalking or pacing yourself.
Yeah.
Once you develop this awareness practice of monitoring yourself, that can bleed over into anything. So all of a sudden, learning this awareness practice, I learned how to be more aware of my trading. I learned how to be more aware of the markets, what's happening inside of me, the pull of the markets. And the same thing happens now as I'm a process worker in process-oriented psychology. I'm just stalking and tracking and pacing with awareness my clients' processes.
Yeah.
And so, those skills of learning how to look inside yourself, touch your own soul and follow what's happening inside of you and what the outcome is, that can go into any endeavor.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to share some big news with you today. This month, anyone with an internet connection will be able to learn my holistic system of exercise and conditioning. That's because we're finally putting one of my most important advanced training programs out to the digital world. That's Integrated Movement Science Level 1, which is now available online. IMS1 includes my physiological load assessment, postural assessments, stretching and mobility assessments, how to perform corrective mobilizations, instructions on improving stability, and a huge library of exercises, all of which are game changers for any practice. The physiological load assessment alone makes a huge difference in your client results and keeps them from getting injured and progressing more naturally and fully, which results in excellent walk-around marketing for you. Whether you're just getting started in holistic health and performance, or you're looking to upskill, or you just want to stand out from the crowd, IMS1 is the advanced training you need. To get early notification of the course release and win a 10% discount at the launch, please go to the Chek Shop, that's CHEK Shop, thechekshop.com/IMS1 online. That's thechekshop.com/IMS1 online and sign up. I know you're going to love this program. I've got nothing but excellent feedback for the years I've been running it live, and it's super exciting to be able to share it with you online so you can learn at your own pace anytime, anywhere you have an internet connection. Enjoy. One of my favorite stories is, I remember you saying, Paul, you're not going to believe this. I'm going to be on an airplane with Deepak Chopra to go to this meeting, and you were a bit nervous about it. I said, yeah. Jason, don't worry about a thing. I promise you, he'll be asking you questions before the day is done. Yeah. I remember you called me back and told me, yep, you were right.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. interesting time. You sit with these legends, and I was quite young and quite nervous at the time, but your training had really prepared me very well for that encounter.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, and and many others too, in my life.
Tell me, you and I did a lot of work, and before I move on to the soul and trading, biohacking drives me fucking batty.
Sure.
I've done so many podcasts, and there's so many people that are just biohack this, nootropic that, take this pill, your brain will do this. It's like all of this shit. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. You got to start with real food, right? And so when I taught you and have taught thousands how to monitor their 4 doctors and pay attention to what's happening inside of you, and stop looking at your damn gadget that tells you how many calories you took and how many steps you took, because none of that matters if you don't have these other things in place. And the problem is, as I tell people all the time, every time you add a gadget into your life, you disconnect from a part of your internal wisdom system.
Sure.
You rely on something to tell you what your heart rate is instead of paying attention to your own perceived effort. You rely on something to tell you how many calories you should eat, but that doesn't tell you anything about how much nutrition is in the calories. So you say, oh, look, I did 156 calories. I can have an apple and a rice cake.
Right.
Yeah, but you might need, 2 chicken legs and a salad.
Yeah.
For a million reasons. But I just think that, and what I said to, I think, Ben Greenfield about this, I said, look, and I think it might have been Dave Asprey too. I said, look, I would much rather see people learning bioharmonizing than biohacking.
Yeah.
The human being is not a computer. It's not a machine. You cannot take shortcuts with it. And I'm sure you've seen this over and over again in your life.
Oh yeah. I mean, the most impactful thing you taught me was just checking my morning heart rate.
Yeah.
Waking up every day and before you get out of bed, checking your morning heart rate for a minute and building a database of what your average is, and then just knowing, hey, is my heart rate below average? Great, I got a lot of energy. Am I within a couple beats of my average? Great, I can maybe do a workout. Or am I in the +5, +10 beats? I got to really watch myself today. If people just did that and had this relationship with their own heart and with their own biorhythms, it would pretty much eliminate any need for any gadget. And the same thing goes listening to your own heart. I mean, when you're in all these biohacking technologies, you're still in your head.
Yeah.
And you're only operating with a portion of your capacity, right?
And it's keeping you in your head.
Right.
Which is not a really good place to, because your head's full of everybody else's information.
Sure.
Right? I think that this reliance on digital data is very dangerous because it turns people into data sets instead of human beings. So people end up going to doctors and everything's on your hormone levels are this, but they're not ever looking at how it got that way.
Yeah, and if you take two allergy tests on the same day, you'll come up with different results.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We've both tried that.
Yeah.
We're getting farther and farther away from being in touch with ourselves. I mean, with all of the advances of technology and all these things on the horizon with the microchipping and the Alexas and the refrigerator that tells you when to order new food, we've really lost touch with
ourselves.
Yeah, our soul, which is the point of this podcast.
People forget what the self is. There's SELF with a small SELF, which is the wholeness of the individual, which includes your soul, your spirit, and everything that you are, which is the whole universe, paradoxically, right? If you were to say, okay, where did the atoms in my body come from? And we could say, okay, there's a little bit of this, there's a little gold, there's a little of aluminum, there's some calcium in there. If you break the body down into the periodic table of elements, and then you say, well, where'd that come from? Well, I got several books in my library that break this down. And they say, well, these came from the sun and these come from the earth, but these didn't originate in the sun. These came from over here. And so this star, the sun, had to have gotten elements from that star. Well, the outcome is every one of us is a product of the entire universe. And the whole world I mean, we're turning over every cell in our body every year, according to current science. And so every time you drink water, you're making a new part of yourself. You eat food, you're making a new part of yourself. But people forget, if you're eating shit from poison soils, you're making cells out of poison food. If you're drinking poison water, if you're breathing shitty air, you are your environment. The human body is like a water fountain. You've probably been to a park and seen like a big water fountain, and if you are far enough away from it, it looks like a tree. It looks like a white water tree. And as you get close, you realize it's moving. It's constantly circulating. And so the water shoots up, and then it comes back into a basin, and it shoots up again. Well, the basin would be like the environment, and the water fountain would be like the human body. And we're constantly holding ourselves up, but drawing everything in. And if we stop eating, then the water fountain goes down. If we stop drinking, the water fountain goes down. If we stop sleeping, the fountain goes down. If we stop moving, it goes down. If we stop breathing, it goes down. So what do people do? They go buy a more powerful pump.
Right.
And they realize, well, you're running out of water. There's nothing to pump.
It's really incredible too, because what you taught me is if you're putting non-organic food or crappy water into your body's actually using more energy to convert that than it's actually gaining from the food itself. It's amazing that people are walking around eating the foods that they're eating and are still able to stand up.
Yeah, it is amazing.
I mean, the human body is so resilient. It's incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you really are what you eat, and it's just incredible what people are willing to put into their bodies
without even thinking about it, including drugs and vaccinations and every other damn thing. It's and doing this to children, and in all fairness to the people, they have been railroaded by false education, by marketing, and by very, very advanced brainwashing technology. So as sad and frustrating as it is to watch, I also look out in the world and see, most people really, they know far more about their iPhone than they do anything about 4 doctors.
Yeah, they know far more about the Kardashians than they know about their own body.
Exactly. And that's a paradox. And the other thing I forgot to mention was capital SELF represents the world and everything that supports you. So our little self, me as Paul and you as Jason, is dependent upon the capital SELF, which is our family, our friends, our society, our culture, and the environment, nature, the whole planet. And so, we've lost ourself, our little self, because we're losing our big self, and they're mirroring each other. As we biohack ourselves, we biohack the world. As we poison the world, we poison ourselves. As we poison the world, we poison ourselves more. We get more tired, more confused, and more lost, and we keep poisoning the world and keep trying to use pills and vaccines and junk to fix ourselves, which makes us more and more profitable and more tired and more susceptible to trickery because we can't think and we can't feel. So with you, you have a very powerful mind, and that's, we all know the mind is a double-edged sword. And what I recognized early in you as your greatest strength was also your greatest weakness, and that is that your ability to analyze and to work data and to see patterns in the market and all the things that made you extremely successful financially were stopping you from getting down into your heart and really feeling intuitively what can help you, whether it be what's coming in relationships, whether it be what's the right food to eat, or when to change your exercise program, or any of the myriad of things we all deal with every day that can be X factors to which doctor's the right one for my children, should I get married to this person, etc. And so we spent quite a lot of time really working with getting into the soul, and I showed you how to use muscle testing to double check. Had you look at any kind of supplements, check with your soul first. Don't just take it what it says on the bottle. And really have no diet plan. Let your soul guide you from meal to meal. And then you took that into your trading. I'd like you to share that story.
Yeah, I think what's so important about that is that it's changing the identification of us as this body to us as the soul.
Yes.
You know, we say we're checking in with our soul, but that really is us.
Yes.
That's the essence of us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're dealing on the periphery, as you know, dealing with our body, we're kind of dealing with the false self in a way.
Yes.
You know, with regards to the trading, for me, it was really getting into the meditation and getting into art. I remember this one time I had a trade that I think you're referencing around 2012, where I think overnight I lost $100 million. Now we wound up making that money back and doing okay on the whole thing, but I was in a situation where in 2 hours we had lost $100 million, and I was like, it's not going to be 3 seconds before my phone lights up, and it's my boss calling me into his office. And he calls me into his office and he says, "Look, what the hell's going on?" And, you know, I'm trying to explain this position to him, and it's, you know, it's close to the end of the day now. And he says, "You got to come back in on Monday with a plan or you're done."
Yeah.
So I remember I was like, oh my God. So, you know, I went out and I checked out for the weekend, and we went out to the beach, and all day Saturday, I just tried to relax, you know, the best I could. I was going paddle boarding and hanging out. And on Sunday, you know, I made a nice smoke of tobacco, and I went out into the backyard with a huge piece of white paper and markers. And I just started doing art and drawing and really just tapping into my soul and my heart. And throughout that process, somehow I manifested a plan for how to convince my boss and my company to keep me in this position. And I came back in Monday morning with these huge pieces of paper, all this art, and people were looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? And I used that to write up a whole business plan and present it to them. And we wound up convincing the company that this was actually a good position to stay in. And we wound up staying in it and making money on it. So, you know, that's just a little bit example about how if I was just using my head there, I would have been completely lost. I never would have figured out a plan. I probably would have been out of a job, you know, 10 years before I retired. But by just relaxing and meditating and letting my soul kind of show me the way out of this, I was able to successfully, you know, navigate that huge problem.
I think, you know, it's hard for people to imagine how much stress, you know, I mean, I remember in 2008 when the stock market crashed, in 24 hours, I had 4 Chek practitioners call me on the phone personally to tell me that one of their clients had lost so much money they committed suicide.
Wow.
4 people in 24 hours.
Yeah, it's not common in my industry. I'd seen many people have heart attacks on the trading floor.
Yeah.
When I was 17 and I was interning in a firm, I saw somebody have a heart attack on the floor, and that was like, what the hell is going on?
You mean it's not uncommon?
It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for people to literally, you know, have a stroke or a heart attack in that environment.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot of inner strength and maintenance of yourself to be able to navigate that kind of world without really impacting your health.
Yeah,
it really does.
It's scary. I mean, I've been broke myself, so when I met Penny, I had everything I own in the back of a car except my library, which was a huge pile of boxes of books. And so it was kind of embarrassing because here I met the dream girl of my life, and, you know, we had an instant connection, and, you know, most people know the story. We were only together for 4 days and we got engaged. But then I remember saying to her, because she, you know, she was quite impressed with my knowledge, right? And she had a master's degree in exercise and sports science, and she's a super smart human being. And she told me, she said, I learned more in 3 days of your workshops than I did in my entire master's degree. And I said, well, before you get too excited about how smart I am, I'm broke.
Yeah.
So she goes, well, don't worry, you do what you do and I'll manage the business. And 2.5 years later, I think we're 2.5, 3 years later, we're up to $2.5 million a year from zero. The point is, I know what it feels like to lose everything.
Yeah.
And it really does. It really is a metal check, you know, your inner strength, and it pushes you to the limit of yourself.
Well, it really does. I mean, especially when you identify with that as success. You know, in that world, you know, what you think of as success is how much money you're making.
Yeah.
You know, that's where all of the appreciation and that's where all of the internal happiness comes from. But you ultimately realize, or at least I ultimately realized, that was not something that was ever really going to fulfill me.
What do you think's been the most impactful thing for you with deepening your relationship with your soul?
Yeah, I think probably getting through that my first marriage, my divorce. It's not something I talk about too much, but my first wife, was the mother of my two girls. I have 3 children now, but the mother of my 2 girls. And when we decided to move from New York City to upstate New York in 2016. And when we went up there, she started going into a very extreme state.
Yeah.
And for 6 months, she was having really sort of psychotic symptoms, and it was super, super scary. If I didn't have a relationship with my soul, I probably would have gone mad myself.
Yeah.
I would have lost it. I mean, the stress at that time of having a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old girl with your wife, having this like stress-induced Kundalini opening where she was just really a psychotic opening and not knowing, which way was up or down. And also trying to manage a $1 billion portfolio at the same time. I mean, that's enough stress to kill you. I think it's this inner guidance system that I had that kind of guided me along, the same thing that guided me to you, the same thing that guided me to the other teachers in my life. Without being in touch with my own soul, without, having practiced, okay, this is how you work with food. Should I eat chicken or should I eat beef? Should I, water this plant today? Should I not water this plant?
Yeah.
Should I pick this rock for the rock stack or that one?
Yeah.
If I hadn't had those repetitions of practicing, talking to my soul and being guided by my soul for the little things, there was no way that it would have worked, for the big things in those moments. So I think all of the preparation we had done with building a relationship with my own soul through art, through all the different practices.
Yeah.
Meditation, contemplation,
Rock
all of these things,
stacking.
rock stacking,
Exercise.
everything, really.
Yeah, everything.
Starting from the smallest to the largest.
From the socks and clothes you wear.
Yeah.
Every day.
Which flight to take, etc.
Yeah.
Without that, I would not have made it through that experience.
Yeah. And because you're financially able to pretty much hire whoever you want to if they're available. So you've been blessed with the financial ability to find, meet, and work with some pretty damn amazing people. I've got, Alex Gray you've worked with personally, and
well, that's a great story about finding your own soul, because when
let's talk about that. That's a really interesting story. That whole thing.
Yeah, it's really cool because when I was living in New York City at the time, and I had seen Alex Gray's art, and I was really moved by it, and I reached out to his manager and said, I'd really love to commission an Alex Gray piece someday. And they said, all right, there's like a 5-year waiting list or something for this, and we'll put you down. And one day we'll call you. Well, when I was in the midst of the most chaotic time of my ex-wife's breakdown, I had just had to get out of the house one day with the kids because, to be quite honest, it was scary to be home with her at that moment. And I just got in my car and started driving down the highway, and I didn't even know where I was going. I don't know if anyone's ever had this. I had never had that experience before, but I got in the car and just started driving because I just couldn't be home. I had the kids in the back. I'm on the highway, and all of a sudden I had this intuition just to drive to Alex Gray's facility in Wappinger Falls, New York. Right. So I pull up there with my kids. I walk into his little cafe. He's got this cool like mushroom cafe with all this art on the wall, and we're drinking some kind of cool latte or whatever. And I just lean over to, the person serving the tea, and I said, hey, I'm on Alex's wait list for a piece. I don't know if he's here, but if he is here today, can you just tell him I'm here? I just wanted to say hello. It wasn't 10 minutes before him and his wife, Allison, came down to greet us. Took us on a tour of their entire property. We had lunch with them. They brought us up to their art studio. I'm sitting there now like seeing all these unbelievable masterpieces that he's working on. He's opening up all these books. He had a book that Terence McKenna had given him, which showed how in ancient caves with ancient cave art, how there are all these pictures of mushrooms on the wall from thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. And he was just so nice and so loving to me.
And you shared smoke with him.
Yeah.
Because you brought your vaporizer, didn't you?
Yeah, well, not at that time. That's a little bit later. But, I was just so moved by how warm he was. And here it was just a spontaneous, experiences show up. So, a year goes by, and I finally hear from him and said, all right, well, it's your time to do your commission. But at that time, I was going through my divorce, and I'm like, Alex, look, man, I'm going through divorce. I can't be spending money on a visionary piece of art right now. I have, I have lawyer bills and, all the things that come with a divorce. And him and his wife were just so kind. I mean, I was so broken at the time, and he would check up on me and email me on Christmas and just, say, how you doing, this and that. So, the divorce goes by. I meet my new wife, Kara, in, this very kind of magical way. And then I say, hey, Alex, let's get together. So then I drive down to his house and I bring the volcano and I bring, he likes to smoke cannabis, but I hope he doesn't mind saying that, but I'm sure he doesn't.
I think everybody in the world knows that.
And so he had never seen this whole volcano set up. And so I'm bringing the organic tobacco, I'm bringing the great cannabis from my brother's biodynamic farm and all the herbs and the tinctures. And I'm just blowing his mind in his art studio and we're having the best time. And, I had just gone through this crazy divorce, and you had made a piece of art for me that had a quote from Jung on it that said, "No tree can grow to heaven until its roots grow to hell."
Reach to hell, yeah.
Reach to hell. So I show him that, and I talk about an image of a man reaching up to the sky and the other half reaching down to the ground, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this." And he pulls out a notebook that he had from 1998 because he keeps every sketch he's ever done, right? And it was literally that picture. You can look this up online. It's called The Great Turn. And there's a sketch of a man reaching up to the sky and half the body reaching down. And it's like, we have to do this.
Yeah.
So a year goes by and I don't hear from him. And he calls me and he goes, "You're not going to believe this. I did this sketch and the band Tool wants to pick it up for their world tour and make The Great Turn the big image for, the stage and for their posters and for their t-shirts. And basically a whole album that, it was the first album that they had done in 10 years. I think it was called Fear Inoculum, the first album they had done in 10 years. And they used the Great Turn figure for this album. And
which was your art that you commissioned him to do.
I commissioned him. What was funny was he hadn't even done the piece of art yet. He had just done a sketch. So him and I were laughing. He's like, "This is going to be the most famous piece of art in the world that I haven't even done yet." Because they were able to take off of the original sketch and make a digital image of it.
And
so
if I could just interject, patient people listening don't know this, but when I'm working with people that are going through challenges, I will connect to their soul and ask, what should I paint for them that will support them? And I think that's what I did for you. Of course, I created this piece of art because you were,
I have it up in my house. I see it all the time.
You were in hell, you were taking a deep tour of hell. And so, because I study Jung so much, I just had this thought, I got to paint something for Jason to inspire him. So I painted this tree whose roots reach to hell, the bottom of the mandala, and its top reaches to the top to heaven. And I shared this with you to say, look, you might be in hell right now, but you're also growing up at the same pace. So hang in there. And so it's amazing how that one concept, that one piece of art that came to me by connecting to your soul ultimately triggered off a connection to Alex Gray, which turned out to be a world famous piece of art.
It's amazing. Yeah. And so, just to finish the story, then COVID happens.
Yes.
And he's holed up in his house for, a year and a half, like most of us were. And now he's working on this masterpiece. It's a 10-foot by 8-foot, I think, monster, larger than life piece of art. And it's going to be showcased in his museum called Entheon that's going to be opening up in the next few months for the whole world to see and be inspired by. And what's so interesting is we really are in the Great Turn right now.
We are.
This piece of art, it was precognitive for the times. It's so relevant. This opportunity, are we going to go down into the hell or are we going to rise up? And both polarities are there and the opportunity and the choice is ours.
Yeah. And, the greater the magnitude between the negative and the positive, the greater the power or potential there is, right? What produces power in an electrical circuit is the differential between the negative and the positive. if either of them goes flat or disappears, if you take the red wire off your battery, it won't start your car. If you take the black wire, it won't start. So it is the differential of polarity between the negative and the positive that produces the potential for current, right?
Sure. Yeah, it reminds me of Tantra.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of the things you've told me about when you look back at your life and you look at the events of your life, did you learn more from the great joyous times or did you learn more from the troubling times? And I think everyone knows that we learn a lot more from these really painful, the painful polarity side of life.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Symbiotica just came out with a new product that I got to test, and I want to tell you about it because a lot of you are like me. You got some aches and pains. I've been around for a while and been thrown off horses, motorcycles, and all sorts of things. And there's an area in my body that hurts quite a lot due to having 2 discs blown out, and that's my lower cervical spine. And Shervin just showed up to visit me with his beautiful partner, Jamie, and handed me this bottle of Ultimate Pain Balm. And he said, Paul, try this. And I put it on my neck, and within seconds, my pain was gone. But even better, I felt like all my chakras are opening up and I'm being tapped into nature. So, Shervin, what did you do? How did you do that? Because this is really good. It smells amazing.
I mean, I don't really have words. I might just go mute here because I'm smelling it and it's taking me into some mystical journey. I mean, look at the color of it.
It's beautiful. It looks like turquoise. What, turquoise, maybe?
Yeah, kind of. That's called blue tansy, which is a very, very rare flower.
Yeah.
And we use the essence of blue tansy. It goes with pain relief.
Mm-hmm.
Blue is cooling. This is an organic artisan blend of some of the most powerful topical medicinals in the world. And its ability to penetrate and create immediate effect is just absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
and
it's acting on an energetic level immediately.
It really does. And, for people that are having breathing issues, children that are having breathing issues, instead of the Vicks rub, which is filled with chemicals and all kinds of stuff, you put that on the chest, put it anywhere on the body. Sometimes I put it a little bit under my nose. It opens up my sinuses. It's very potent. So someone like, men, we don't want to put that on our fingers and put it in our private area, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have a hot rod.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a journey. It's never been done before at this level. It's sitting in Myron glass, just like, most of our stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy with where we're at with this. People are having the best reviews, and it's a go-to for me every day.
So it's great for muscle pain, joint pain, anything else?
Burns, cuts, anything.
Restricted breathing.
Yep, restricted breathing.
Put it on the chest.
Headaches. A lot of people are getting cluster headaches because they're not mineralized properly or they're out of alignment. This can open up those senses and allow clarity. I look at it as it opens up the highways of life from within.
Plus, it's hard to get a good pain balm that's all organic. So
Absolutely.
It's nice to know you can put something on your body that's clean.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I tried it. I'm not easy to impress. And I'm sitting here right now with no pain in my neck and this feeling of a fullness of energy. And it's definitely worth trying if you want a little backup in your toolkit for when things are aching or if you have some old chronic stuff like I do. So go to CYMBIOTIKA.com and on checkout, use the code CHEK15 to get your 15% Living 4D discount. You will find this very impressive. I sure did.
This is your medicine journey.
There it is. You and I have done a lot of work with shamanism. We've done countless hours of rattling and drumming and chanting and singing and Tai Chi. We've done loads of Tai Chi and lots of plant medicine ceremonies with specific intentions and very careful setups, usually a 4-day process.
Yep. We're on one right now.
Yep, we are on one right now.
Day 3.
We're on day 3 of a 4-day ceremony. And so there's we won't go into the whole thing because I don't think that's important right now, but through doing hundreds of ceremonies and studying with other medicine carriers and shaman, and I saw all the things that were getting people in trouble, and many people would come to me in trouble. And, so I studied a lot and let my soul guide me to developing a very carefully planned system so that people don't get damaged during plant medicine ceremonies. And so you and I have been working that system for a long time. But one of the things that happened with you is you really developed this genuine interest in shamanism. And, you started out singing a song. And I think, wasn't White Eagle the one that really got you into that type of singing?
Yeah, well, I actually had a really interesting experience in Soltera in
that's right,
in Costa Rica. Yeah, so this was right before the beginning of COVID, around February 2020, and my wife Kara and I had planned to go to Soltera in Costa Rica to do an ayahuasca ceremony, and from the time that we scheduled the trip to the time it was about to go, she got pregnant with my son Kidra. Who's now almost 2 years old. So we called up Soltera and said, look, Kara's pregnant. We probably shouldn't come down. Obviously it doesn't make sense for a pregnant woman to go on a deep 4-day ayahuasca journey. And they said, oh, let us talk to the shamans about this. And the shamans came back and said, look, in our culture, mostly the people in the ceremonies often don't even take the medicine. Often the medicine's just reserved for the shamans or the maestros, and the real healing is from the Icaros, from the music that are channeled from doing these long dietas, these long diets of plants that they go out into the jungle until they learn the songs of the plants, and they come back and they can transmit them to the people coming to the ceremony. So there was a particular woman, a maestra, a Peruvian shaman that was in the ceremony who had the most beautiful voice, and I just connected so deeply with her, and I really learned a powerful teaching in that moment, that what I brought to her when she would sing to me, because they go around the circle and sing to each person once.
Yeah.
What I brought to her, my intensity and my love and my openness, was what she was able to bring back to me.
Yes.
And so I saw that this there was this relationship, and this music just got inside of my heart and opened me up. And I remember the next day going over to her and saying to her, look, I just want to thank you so much for bringing me to that height with your beautiful music. And she goes, well, I want to thank you, because I couldn't have gone there unless you were willing to go with me.
That's great.
And this really taught me a lot about the relationship that we can have with Great Spirit or with our teachers, is that they can only meet us for what we're ready to bring.
Yes.
And what we're ready for.
That's what's allowed us to go so far.
Yeah. And, just to finish off that story, it was quite interesting, because being in that ceremony, I'd been in many ceremonies with you and with other people, mostly with you. And, I thought I was quite prepared for that one, being that, I had years of experience and a lot of preparation, and I did my art and my tarot and my journaling and my prayers and my intentions and my diet and my purification. But being in there with my unborn son in the ceremony, that was a completely different level. I went in there with the intention of saying, dear Great Spirit, please help me remove any obstacles that will prevent me from fathering this son, to the best of my ability. And man, did I get what I asked for? Because I was, I had such a powerful experience in there. I had this experience of, which you've talked about many times, where I could feel the ecstasy and the joy of the world, and also simultaneously the pain. I had this experience of what it was like for a woman to give birth, where I could feel like the pure joy and the bliss, but also this feeling of being pulled apart.
Yeah.
And so it was just this very powerful experience. But when I got out of there, I realized I retouched my earliest dreams of wanting to be of drumming and music. And that's when I met White Eagle Medicine Woman, from the Whirling Rainbow Foundation, and her music, the native music, and that style of drumming, this feminine style of drumming, where instead of being like kind of more of a masculine, Michael Harner or, some of these more traditional beats, it was this soft heartbeat rhythm, this feminine beat. And I just exploded with my voice. And for the last 2 years, I've been studying singing and studying Native American music, and it's just Native American flute and many other instruments as well. And it's just been a complete joy for me. I mean, for anyone listening, 2 years ago, I never thought I could sing a lick. Mm-hmm. And here I am, being brave enough to sing on your podcast for maybe 50,000 people. So,
thank you.
It's just, when you put your heart and mind to something and you follow your joy and you follow your bliss, you can do anything. I mean, that's without a doubt.
It's so true. That's why I like Jerry Wesch's quote, if you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. And I think most people let fear be their seeing eye dog, and it never makes a good seeing eye dog. It's just like, I've always found that my greatest growth potential comes whenever I feel afraid about something, that means I need to stand very still and face it and say, what is it? What is it? And as you know very well, most fear is false evidence appearing real. We have a really, it's like my podcast with Paul Levy. He says we are very good at tricking ourselves, but usually tricking ourselves into what we don't want instead of what we do want. And I think that, if you're afraid to sing, you should probably sing. If you're afraid to dance, the greatest growth potential and freedom for you is going to come from dancing. If you're afraid of good sex, then you should start pursuing some good sex.
And those are likely the things you're dreaming about at night, right?
Yeah, exactly. Whenever you're missing, soul will give you dreams about.
Yeah, Jung would call that a compensatory dream. It's like what you need in your life to call in is probably, what's secondary to you is what you need. And it's likely coming to you in all different ways at night and during the day. And it's just paying attention to those things.
Yeah, it's all around
and bringing
you.
them in. Totally.
Or your friends keep saying, you should come to this drum circle. And then you come to this drum circle and someone's saying, oh, I can't drum. Well, you're certainly not going to learn to drum sitting at home watching, reality television.
Yeah, then the natives would say, if you can walk, you can dance.
Yeah,
if you can talk, you can sing. They say sing for your life. And I truly have found that singing and expressing myself in that way has brought me so much life. I mean, if you're having a bad day and you start singing anything for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, it's amazing how much I can transform your whole experience.
Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, don't you know? Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, don't you know? Dr. Happy sets your rhythms sets your pressure, and your rhythms and your pressure make your flow. And your rhythms and your pressure make your flow. Ho, ho. Ho, baby.
Yeah.
Dr. Happy's the chief of all the doctors, because if you aren't happy enough to love and take care of yourself, you're going to pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it the way you should do it.
Yeah.
Because it's always a codependent relationship that's usually expensive. The funny thing is, you know this as well as anyone on the planet, how many times I've been accused of running a cult.
Yep.
Haven't I?
A lot.
A lot. And I say, well, you obviously don't know what a cult is, because cult leaders control you and do not teach you anything about freedom. It's all about doing what the cult leader says, be it Jim Jones or Charlie Manson or any of these guys, or, God forbid, a lot of churches. But I teach people how to be free.
Yeah, you taught me how to take care of myself and to think for myself. I mean, there's nothing I don't know what would be a cult about that. You never once said, believe me because this is my experience. You said, this is my experience, but try it for yourself.
Yep. I tell people all the time, don't believe a word I say. Go try it for yourself.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, then tell me.
If you find something better, you can become my teacher.
Exactly. And so you did a lot of work with White Eagle, and you went through a lot of her training.
Mm-hmm.
You also worked with, I forgot the Tai Chi master's name. You did that for quite a while.
Well, I'm still with him. We've been together for about 13 years, and his name is William C.C. Chen.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his 80s, and he teaches Tai Chi in New York City. And, I studied with him as passionately as I studied with you. I wanted to learn the inner arts of movement, especially when you told me to take 2 years off from exercise. I said, okay, well, I have to find something to do. So I want to learn working in.
Yeah.
So I went and I studied Tai Chi with him, all the Tai Chi forms, all the applications, how to throw punches with, Tai Chi mechanics, how to walk down the street with Tai Chi mechanics, how to do sword form. And I recently, in the last couple months, received my master's certificate in his training. And we still study together about every 2 weeks. Now it's online because I live in upstate New York. But, anybody who people, elders really inspire me. People who are doing what they love to do, and what I love about him, what I love about you, and what I love about all of my teachers that I study with, from White Eagle to Jeffrey Armstrong to Dr. Kareem, is that they're continuously learning.
Yes.
They're not stopping. Every time I come back to class, William Chen is telling me, this is what I figured out this week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've been doing this for 75 years. And he's still figuring out how to express him, what's moving through him while he's doing Tai Chi, to me in better and better ways. And that just so inspires me. And so we just have such a love affair, such a joy of practicing together, of exploring together, and, just perfecting this form.
And I had Master Fong Ha, you see. He blew my doors wide open beautifully and simply. I went to Fong Ha because I saw that there was a real disease in our culture with, because I work with so many elite athletes who are just burning themselves out constantly and mainlining Red Bull and coffee and every other damn thing you can think of, and coming to me with gym bags full of pills and, the crazy shit. And I had worked with a number of Tai Chi teachers and so-called masters, and I found even they were stuck in their head. And because I had a background in inner arts from Self-Realization Fellowship meditation, and I'd studied Osho's dynamic meditations and everything I could get, I've got Osho's entire library, as you know, it's sitting right next to you. Well, what I did is I went to Fong Ha as part of writing my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, because I had this concept of taking the principles of Tai Chi, and I'd read multiple books on the development of Tai Chi, where it came from and how it got formed. And so I was really wanting to find a true master of Tai Chi. And it was just by happen chance, I was doing what I normally do, traveling the world looking through bookstores, the best bookstores I can find. And I just found myself in the martial arts section, and there was this 3-volume set on the history of the great martial arts masters, going back for a long, long time.
Sure.
And I'm looking through this book, and it shows the lineage of Tai Chi masters, and right up to current was Master Fong Ha. And I look in there, and it says that he lived in San Francisco, California. And I thought, holy shit, that's not far away from me. I can get there in a couple of hours on an airplane. Drive to the airport, jump on the plane, I'll be there in an hour. So I searched him out, called him up, and said, I'm working on writing this book. And I explained, how I thought people were just burning out, and he totally agreed. And so I said, I'm looking to create a series of exercises that correlate with the energy centers of the body so that I can custom design my book so that people can identify where they're most out of balance and then know what inner exercises or work. I developed the concept work in, as you know, because everyone's so working out, which is yang. And so he was really excited. And so I did a series of gongs with him and went deeper and deeper. But by the time I got through my second gong practice, my clairvoyance, all my voyances, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, was so strong, it was like overwhelming. I really was like, I was being blown open so much that I was like tapping into the collective unconscious, and it was quite shocking at times. It was stressful. And so I long story made short, I had to work on a deal with my soul to only show me what it wanted me to show me, wanted me to see, because I was meant to help somebody.
Right.
But the point being is, when you get in contact with a real master, it doesn't take long. I mean, I worked with Fong Ha probably for a year, and he just gave me assignments to do. And then by that time, after 3 gongs, so that's 300 days, I had got the information and I had the evidence that I needed that these simple exercises were very powerful, and was able to then, develop the work-in concept to the point that I could take it out to the world and know I had practiced it enough and mastered it enough that I knew for sure what I was talking about and could feel good about it. And that's why, it's one of the reasons why when I've worked with you and many others, I always say, look, if there's something you're passionate about, find out someone who's really good at it. That's how I built my whole knowledge base. I didn't build it going to a school. I built it traveling around the world saying, okay, who's the best at this? Who's the best at that? And I spent, probably the first 20 years of my career living on airplanes almost every weekend, going to some seminar from, the Czech Republic to wherever I had to go to learn. And I think, that you've really had the same experience.
And if I could just say something about that. I think that's one of the biggest diseases in our cultures that we get to a certain age and we get set in our belief systems.
That's dangerous.
Look at most of our senior citizens and the people that should be elders. They are stuck in the same belief systems they had probably from childhood.
Yep.
And they're unwilling to grow. And that rigidity, that unwillingness to change is really a sickness.
It is.
I mean, one of the things that I learned, and I was so inspired by you, is essentially what you just said. If anyone has come to your library and you open up any one of your books, I mean, I'm talking about the most incredible notes that just blow my mind. Red pens, yellow pens, black pens, notes in the margins, notes in the table of contents. I mean, sticky notes in every single book. Thousands of books, notebook after notebook after notebook after notebook of notes that you've taken. And, for me, I picked up on that. I said, wow, this is really about never stopping learning, never stopping exploring, and just having this thirst for knowledge. And so, I just have seeked out, just like you said, I've had a privilege of having the financial success from my early part of my life, but I've seeked out, how many countless people have I heard on your podcast that I said, hey, Paul, can you give me that email?
Yeah.
From James Tunney to Laurel Erica to Jeffrey Armstrong.
Yeah.
The list goes on.
Dr. Kareem, but you knew him before, but I remember you
James Wanless.
Yeah. I remember years ago when Kara she came across something that she was asking me about geometry and energy, and I said, well, you might want to look into this biogeometry stuff. Yeah. And then you got into the training. Angie went through the training.
Yeah.
And, you and I know that Dr. Kareem and I got together. And
that's totally changed our life. Actually, Kara got in first. And when I saw how powerful it was, I said, I need to take this training myself.
Yeah.
Then we got the house that we're currently in. We had a practitioner come out, actually 3 biogeometry practitioners. It's very advanced level of biogeometry beyond where I'm at, to be a practitioner to go into someone's home and do it at that level where you're correcting all the grid lines and, really creating the highest level of BG3. And when I felt the effect of that, I said, oh my God, this is like nothing I'd ever experienced. As you know, I was living in New York City in years prior. And when I got first turned on to the poison of the EMFs in the environment, which I knew nothing about, I had a building biologist come to my house and take a reading in my bedroom, and I had 100,000, megahertz or whatever. I don't know what
I think you told me at the time was 26,000 times the safe limit.
Yeah,
you were. I remember you were having some health problems, and your kids and and Jackie.
Yeah.
And I said, Jason, you need to look around to see if there's any cell phone towers near you.
Well, when I looked around, I saw about 5 pointed right at my bedroom.
Right.
And when the building biologist came in, he said, this is like beyond unsafe,
Because I saw all the symptoms of EMF stress on you.
And, and when you're living in New York City or you're living in a condo building or anywhere in the world and you turn on and you're looking for a Wi-Fi and you
there's
see
50 of them.
25 plus, it's off the phone.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have enough space for all the Wi-Fis.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of wrap up the story, we had to move out of our, penthouse apartment on Bond Street and totally renovate the whole place to shield it, like become a Faraday cage.
Yep.
It was like a freaking $500,000 plus renovation to put shielding paint on the walls and then put something over that, put film on the windows, put the shielding material under the carpets, do all of these different things, have switches to turn off the power, have switches to turn off the Wi-Fi. And when I met Biogeometry, and when I realized that through the use of simple shapes like a cube in your house or a little L90 sticker that you could put on your Wi-Fi unit. And then you could, for $12, $16, or $200 for the home kit, you could revolutionize your experience and actually not have to block anything, but bring up the level of BG3 so high that you're just kind of resonating with that. And the other stuff is just noise. So, right now we're working with Dr. Kareem and Dareya to build our whole entire house.
Yeah.
That we're building from the ground up, from the design of the house to the orientation of the house on the land to the shape of the driveway. Every single building material that's going into our house, we're keeping so that they could harmonize in a material wheel to bring all BG3 to every material in the house.
It's wild.
The placement of the garden. We were on FaceTime with Dr. Kareem and Dareya while they were sitting in their living room, and trying to pinpoint the exact place to put our well so that we could hit BG3 water.
Wow.
So it's just been such an amazing relationship working with them. I mean, I really just love them. And I know that, you've grown such a beautiful relationship with them as well. It's been so fantastic.
Dr. Cream is, honestly, of all the people I've met in the world, I have to say he is, I can't think of anybody that's wiser, deeper, more spiritually connected, more honest, more loving. I mean,
I would also add generous to that. I mean, he's such a big heart. He's such a big heart.
He's just like, he's really an incarnated Buddha. He reminds me, his energy is like Penny. He's just capable of almost anything. And Angie's gone through their advanced training, and she's doing the work because we're going to bring biogeometry into the Chek Institute.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
So Angie's going to be the head of that department. So she has to finish their training, which they're waiting to get the right people to do this final training. And then she'll be approved to start teaching it through the Institute. But many people from the Chek Institute, because of my podcasts with Dr. Cream and Doria, have gone through biogeometry training, and I've had nothing but amazing results. And Angie did biogeometry on this entire 14-acre property, on every bit of it. My big house, my office, the gym, all of it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been incredible to come here from before that till now and experience the difference in the energy of the place. I mean, the energy was already very high. It's a beautiful land and a great place, and your soul was gravitated to here. So of course, it was wonderful energy. We're in the beautiful mountains in California, but to raise the level of BG3 with that level of intention, where Angie was telling me that each tree she's putting into the ground, all the fruit trees she's planting, she's object rotating so that it's in the right rotation versus the land to have the most harmonious BG3. And she was telling me earlier today that they're producing fruit like 2 years before they're supposed to be. They're already they're just the amount of life force when you're working with the laws of nature. Yeah. When you realize that you are your environment and you're working in reciprocity with the laws of nature, it's amazing what can be produced. It's just incredible.
My gardener, Freddie, who's very experienced, he's worked this land for 20 years. He's been caretaking this property for 20 years. At first, he would be working with Angie, and he would just go ahead and do stuff without following what she wanted him to do based on biogeometry. So Angie would kind of get irritated and say, Freddie, look, there's a reason I'm doing this. There's a science to this. And of course, he's planted a million plants. And he's like, what is this girl talking about, right?
Right.
So Angie told me one day he was down there in the orchard, and he came to Angie, goes, look at this. Like, these trees have only been in the ground for maybe a month, and there's already this buds of fruit coming off, and they're just growing like crazy. And she said, it was Freddie had this realization that, wow, whatever she's doing, it really works. So it kind of just blew his mind,
What about tasting the water? I mean, the water on your property and the water on my property being BG3 water. Yeah. Which is a great metaphor for life. We've talked about digging these deep wells. Yes. And hitting this sort of sacred water. Yeah. Really going deep into a practice instead of like having a lot of little shallow kind of expeditions. But when you go deep in the right spot and you work with the laws of nature, you hit an oasis, really.
Yeah, you hit the love of nature and life. Hi, everybody. This is Paul Chek. I come to give you a little message. I want to share some empathy. I know how hard it is to change your behavior when you got some bad diet and lifestyle habits, and you look at that coffee, or you look at the sugar, or you look at the junk food that you're in love with, and you reach for it because it's quick and easy, and you keep telling yourself, I need to change, I need to change, I need to change. But eventually the system breaks down and you get motivated by the pain teacher. But what if I gave you an opportunity to try something that would help you start the process of behavior change and enjoy it and look forward to it? Well, I have something for you. It's Organifi's red juice. It tastes great, and it's loaded with nutrition and lots of vitality for you. And I got Drew Canoli here to tell us why it works so well for behavior change and increasing your life force and your vitality. Drew, what's the magic in that red juice? Because everybody seems to love it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. Sometimes when we're craving things, it's hard to switch a habit, a behavior.
Yeah.
So I looked at that fundamental fact and I'm like, well, what could we create that people could crave that actually tasted great?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when red juice was born for
Good.
energy. So between the berries, the blueberries, the raspberries, the strawberries,
Yes.
the best quality organic glyphosate residue free,
Yes.
the rhodiola and the cordyceps,
Yes.
we were onto something. We sweetened it with a
Definitely.
dash of monk fruit.
Mm.
And literally, I started to come to life when I drank this. I had so
Yeah.
much more energy than I would normally have. Stamina went through the roof.
Yeah.
I actually shaved off 45 seconds off my mile time drinking red juice before I ran.
Wow.
Talk about an uptick in nitric oxide production in your body, right?
Something went up.
Yeah.
We know speed
Actually,
went up.
it's funny you say that because I get messages all the time about sexy time.
Oh,
And
yeah?
when people drink red juice, they're
Something's
like,
going up.
something's going up. And I get so many messages about that. That's funny you brought that up.
Well, we hope it's the flag these days.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're looking for more energy and stamina and something that tastes great to where you could shift your cravings,
Yes.
keeping your hunger and your energy in check
And feel good about it.
and feel good about it.
And you might even break down a little bit and wander back. But if you've got some natural sweetness and a lot of nutrition, you probably, if you're honest with yourself, won't need as many chips or as many of whatever your little thing is.
Yeah.
But you can do this naturally and easily. And that's what I'm all about. Naturally and easily and honestly. And, it all starts with being honest with yourself. So if you want a great tasting behavioral switch technique that's really good for you, it has a lot of knock-on benefits for you and your whole family, try red juice. Go to Organifi.com, Organifi.com. And because I love you, Living 4D listeners, so much, I've organized for you to get a 20% discount with the code capital C, capital H, capital E, capital K, 20. And that's as fast as I can say that. I love you guys. Enjoy your red juice. One of the things that I wrote down to talk to you about, because this is really an interesting little soul guidance thing. When you and Jackie moved out of Manhattan and you went to the mountains where she had her breakdown, it was quite marvelous that you were, 400 meters from a Buddhist temple.
Yeah, that was quite amazing. So when we moved to upstate New York, we had looked all over for a long time for a place. And, I was checking out everything for mold and for EMFs, and we just could not find a house that worked for us. Finally, the one that we found was this small little Japanese house sitting on this amazing waterfall, which I learned a lot about living on a waterfall. It could be very intense for women in particular. With the water just rushing under our house, it really just sweeps everything out of you, which can be very cleansing, but also can be provide a lot of upheaval in your life.
Yeah.
But we lived right next to a 400-acre Buddhist retreat center, the headquarters for Won Buddhism, which is a Korean sort of Zen Buddhism that had its headquarters in the United States right next to my house. And if I didn't have those monks who I went and meditated with every single morning when she was going through that, when my kids, having to deal with my kids, I would not have made it. They were such a stabilizing effect on me, sitting there in silence with them every morning, meditating, practicing and learning. And, it's just such an incredible synchronicity that Great Spirit, put me in this really impossible spot, but at the same time gave me all the tools to pull out of it.
Yeah. It reminds me of something Osho said once. He said, when I die, I'm not going to go to heaven. I'm going to go to hell. That's where all the action is. And, you've had some trips to hell and look at how parallel, each of these trips to hell has brought you into contact with other masters and other amazing opportunities that ultimately became intimately important in your life that not only helped you grow, but has helped you touch countless numbers of peoples. And now you got all sorts of podcasters wanting to talk to you, and you're working on your process psychology completion, and you're doing a lot of process psychology and studying Arnold Mandel's system. And Arnold Mandel's a freaking genius, bar none. There's
amazing.
not too many Arnold Mandels. I mean, he's right up there with Ibrahim Karim.
Yeah.
And so that was, quite an amazing
Yeah,
thing.
all of these obstacles have led to, higher and higher heights.
Yeah.
I mean, sitting here today, I couldn't be here. I couldn't have the empathy and compassion that I have, the understanding or the inner resilience or the strength without having gone through those huge extremes.
Yeah. Tell us about your time. You did some work with Ram Dass too. What was that like?
Well, when you were mentioning before about meeting these great teachers, I was thinking that, sometimes it could just be one moment with them that can have a lifetime of effect.
Yeah.
And I only had one virtual meeting with Ram Dass, but it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. I mean, he was, it was about a year or two before he died. And, I was on Skype with him late at night because I think he's in Hawaii. He was in Hawaii and I was in New York. So I was 5 hours ahead of him or 6 hours ahead of him. And I said to him, look, I'm going through this really horrible time with my ex-wife, with my wife at the time. Can you give me any guidance? And he gave me this 10-minute amazing download about karma yoga, how working with her, how to loving her, loving my children, how that was my yoga, how to make that, that be my spiritual practice. And it was really profound and it stays with me today. And I'm just so grateful for having had him touch me in that way.
Yeah. One of the things that I'd love to hear you talk about too, and just dialogue a little bit about is, a lot of people think I'm crazy because I use tarot and I get attacked by Christians all the time for tarot, and they say it's the work of the devil and every other damn thing. Anything that goes against the book is the work of the devil. You remember in our ceremony yesterday, I had a quote pop into my head. If you want to meet the devil, pick a fight with Jesus. Guaranteed to get you to the devil every time.
Yeah, I think you've had some great quotes too about tarot, about, I don't remember exactly, but anyone who's afraid to look at tarot is really just afraid to look into themselves.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. I think tarot is very powerful because, as you know, it's based on the 22 key archetypes. It's really the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell brought in 22 steps. But those archetypes are inevitably active in us all day long, 24 hours. They're kind of just like you got 26 letters of the alphabet, and you can't make a sentence or write a story without the alphabet. Tarot is like the alphabet of the psyche. It's the symbols that connect to meanings, like the magician. It's the mind. Well, what are you not doing that involves your mind? The Empress is the mother. Well, none of us would be here without a mother. And if you can't mother yourself, you certainly don't have a 4-doctor practice, etc., right? So why tarot is so important for me is because, as you know, a lot of people have a hard time getting out of their head to connect with their soul, and they're so disconnected from their heart, they don't have a way in. So I teach people to use tarot and let their soul choose the cards and have a specific question, like what is my day going to be today? What do I need to know to live and love fully today? Or we're entering a ceremony. So I say, okay, I want you to draw one card for each day of our ceremony. Or we're going to go into ceremony today. I want you to draw 6 cards, and that will show you what's going to happen at each point through the ceremony. And that will then tell me, as the medicine man, what I need to be aware of to support you and what you need to be aware of, so I can recommend to you how you can use your heart, your mind, and your soul connection to navigate the challenges that are likely to come up, because the tarot is going to tell you what you're going to face. And so the point is that by having this system of archetypes, it gives you, your soul, a language to talk to you, right? Because it takes a long time before you can get past yes-no questions. You got to be able to be clairsentient or clairvoyant. Like, I can talk to my soul, and my soul can show me what looks like a movie in my head, or I can say to my soul, what do you think I should do now? And just listen and hear a voice, which is the voice of the soul. But it took me years and years of work to an inner development to get to that place. But anybody can get out a tarot deck, shuffle the cards, hold an intention, and their soul can guide them to the right card. So I would love to just hear from you. How has tarot been influential in your life, and how are you using it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that it brings up. One is knowing what your birth card is, right?
Yeah.
Your life card. So for me, I'm the Lovers,
Yeah.
number 6.
Yeah.
And, until I understood that card and understood that card is really about learning not only relationships, which has been the big spiritual journey of my life,
Yeah.
and still remains to be, relationship to myself, relationship to my intimate partners, my children, and the world, but also this balancing of extremes.
Polarity.
This polarities, this masculine and feminine. And so, I've been 330 pounds. I've been 160 pounds. I've had the most wild trading highs and the most wild trading lows. I've had, the extreme beautiful love and then the extreme divorce.
Yeah.
And so for me, I realized that's my life path. That's why I'm here, is to explore these extremes and to find the middle way, to find the balance. Mm-hmm. So once I had that idea of, okay, this is my card and this is why I'm here, that really gave me a lot of guidance into my life.
Yeah.
The second thing is this practice of divination and the practice of ritual, right? I mean, when you go to see a shaman, it's when did you stop playing? When did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? And when did you stop sitting in ceremony?
When did you stop enjoying being alone with yourself?
Yeah. And so, this whole idea of daily practices, whether or not it's checking your morning heart rate or, taking a daily cold shower or doing the tarot, it's having these times in your day where you stop what you're doing and you check in with yourself.
Yes.
And you go inside for guidance. And, whether or not it's throwing the I Ching or doing biogeometry or dowsing or tarot, it's like having this practice where you're trying to capture the momentary field. There's so much information in the field that's going on all the time. And if we just take a moment to center ourselves, we can connect with a part of the larger self that has much more information than we can actually think of with our conscious mind.
And to do that, you got to let your ego go. You can't do that with your ego. You have to take a moment, hold your intention, and let yourself be guided from the inside. And every time you do that, you put your ego in the back seat. And as you do that, haven't you noticed, for example, that using tarot and all these practices shows you things that your ego could never have told you? And lo and behold, there it is, right?
It's just like doing the art we did yesterday, right? You start to see all the things that you never could have known. And so, and that's a big thing. It's one of the biggest things you've taught me is how to learn when my ego is impersonating my soul, right? Because the ego is incredibly brilliant. And we've talked about people who've said, oh, Paul, my soul told me to eat a box of Oreos, or my soul told me to do,
DMT every day.
7 days a week DMT or whatever. But really kind of getting still and developing that practice of knowing what does it feel like inside of you when your soul is giving you a response, a yes or a no, or when the card feels right to you. That's invaluable.
Let's show our paintings.
Yeah.
For those of you that aren't seeing the video, you can watch it on my YouTube podcast channel. So this is our ceremony painting. So I always use art to enter ceremony because I'm an art therapist and I can read the art. So before I take someone in ceremony, I have to decide, okay, what medicine's the best one? What's the right amount of medicine to get a positive effect? And so Jason showed me the beginnings of this, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. And it was so funny because I was looking at that painting, and I thought, God, that looks a lot like Penny. And I just had this internal sense, but I knew, that I didn't think you were painting Penny. I just thought, because you study Buddhism and all these other things, and it could be, a Buddhist goddess or something like that.
Yeah, and this image just, through the practice you've taught me, just emptying myself over the course of a couple of weeks before I was coming here.
Yeah.
And this image just came to me precognitively, right?
And so we're deep in ceremony yesterday. I mean,
very deep.
Me and Jason don't play light. He's got what I call his wings. So we push the edges of we take the ego completely out of the picture.
Definitely on the edge of psychosis there.
Yeah, we go we go meet God at the edge of the universe. But we're in ceremony and Penny walks in and she's got tears in her eyes and she goes, "You're not going to believe what happened to me." And I'm like, "Well, you're crying, so I'm already nervous." And she goes, "Well, I hate to bring this to you in the middle of your ceremony," but she goes, somebody sent us some chocolates in the mail. Because I get people send me stuff in the mail constantly, like people that want to sponsor my podcast and all sorts of stuff. But somebody sent a box of chocolates that either had magic mushrooms or marijuana in them.
Yeah.
And we don't know what it was.
Yeah,
but
some surprise.
She ate a chocolate yesterday morning, and by about midday, she was going through quite an experience, and she's like wobbly legged and emotions going crazy.
Yeah.
And,
she was supposed to be our babysitter.
Yes, and she's like, I said, well, you're going to lay down with us here. But anyhow, and we both, I think, right about that time had the realization, look, that's Penny in your painting.
Yeah.
And I've got my favorite picture of Penny on the wall.
That one has always inspired me. There's a picture right in your kitchen of Penny. It really looks just like this in this very beautiful face where it's really, to me, the essence of Penny. It's just like she's totally inside herself preparing for some sort of dance competition or something.
Yeah, she was in it.
And she just looks so beautiful in that picture.
Yeah.
And it really looks just like this image.
It does. And so there's Penny with her head getting blown open. And the sun and the moon, the eclipse of the male and the female,
right.
The yin and the yang, the inner and the outer. And so we were just cracking up at that.
And that really just shows the amazing ability for the soul to move through you when you're doing art, right?
And precognitive, that was a precognitive, because that art started, what you started?
At least 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before you got here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I wanted to do something that I could paint in a day without a lot of stress. And so I asked my soul for a vision. So I went into meditation and I sat on my water charger, up at the top where there's a lot of energy. And I said, I'm going into ceremony and with Jason, that. So I need to paint something that'll stabilize both of us for the ceremony. So I painted this painting, and we were in ceremony, and to preface this, me and Jason were doing our tarot draws, and fives kept coming up. There was just 5 after 5 after 5. Everything was, the total of the date for the day was 5. The total on the cards kept being 5. There was just 5.
Our numbers added together.
And our numbers
5.
added up together. So we do a tarot numerology, and so we look at his card and my card, and so that tells me what happens when we mix our energies together. So if Jason's having this experience, I'm having this experience, the total tells me how I need to manage the situation so that both of us are in the best situation. There were just 5s everywhere, right? So I'm sitting in ceremony with you, and this is after Penny had come, and Angie is a 5. Angie's tarot number is 5, her birth number. And so I'm sitting there looking, and it just dawned on me, where's the bird's beak? And I start 1 from the north position, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, wow, that's just so trippy. I mean, there's 24 points on the star, and I just felt that the bird's beak belonged there, and it's in the 5th position. And 5 is the Hierophant, which is in tarot is the spiritual teacher, and the spiritual teacher is someone who's got mastery of the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane. The 3 worlds, or the below, the middle, and the above, how, many ways you can slice it up. But so, this is just an example of how art gets past the ego's defense systems.
Sure.
And how, when you know how to read the symbolism, the bird is a symbol of the soul, the sun is a symbol of consciousness, but it's also an alchemical symbol for the ego. So my piece of art says the soul will eclipse the ego, and you will be fulfilling your role as a Hierophant. I just didn't know it would be for Penny too.
That really shows the importance of all of our preparation in these ceremonies. I mean, could you imagine doing one of these ceremonies without having done your art or without having done tarot? It's such an incredible grounding factor. I mean, for the people out there that are just, running into ceremonies without doing this preparation, I mean, quite honestly, it's extremely dangerous.
Yes.
If you're going deep into ceremony and you don't have a map, if you don't have a map of where you're going from your soul, from the art you've produced, from the tarot that you've picked, you're quite lost, and it could be quite dangerous, as you know.
Yes, well, I've known 6 people to die in ceremony. That's a lot of people for one guy. Literally 6 people that I know never came back from a medicine ceremony.
Yeah, these are not recreational experiences.
No, and what happens if they become recreational experiences, then you have to deal with the karma that you generate for the silliness that you're engaging in. And, look at how many cars have been crashed and people have been killed. And, as you know, one of the things that happens when you're doing plant medicines is you can lose your sexual barriers, and the next thing you know, someone's getting pregnant that's married to somebody else, and that just causes an avalanche of trouble. And God, the stuff I've seen happen when people start playing around with psychedelics and drugs of all types without really having a spiritual intention and being prepared and having someone to guide them safely. It's just sad. I mean, people have come to me, as you know, from all over the world, and even famous people that anyone listening to this podcast would know who they are, in big trouble. And it's I'm just grateful that I, because I did a year of training with a doctor that uses plant medicines to heal people, and unfortunately, his style is quite dangerous. His philosophy is you blow the ego right the hell out of the house, and whatever happens is their karma. And I saw a lot of people get damaged. And so it was good that I studied with him because, I have, as you know, a high tolerance for the medicines. I can take a pretty whopping dose and still write notes and write poetry and draw pictures.
And paint, which is always amazing to me. While I'm lying on the floor next to you, you're painting a beautiful painting.
Yeah. And so what it did for me was it made me realize that this is not for everybody. And if you're not prepared, it can do more damage than good. And there has to be a filtration system. And some of my clients I've worked with, Mike Salemi, most people know him. I made him wait 2.5 years till I felt he had enough connection to his soul and enough mental, emotional self-management to handle, opening Pandora's box and being safe. And seeing so many people hurt and what their psychological state was and what things needed to be looked at. It took me a number of years and some experimentation and a lot of study to put together a safe system. And I'm really glad that Spirit took me into the hell realms of seeing what happens to people. Because what happens is a lot of people go and they do some mushrooms or something and they have a fantastic experience. And the next thing you know, they're doing them and going out dancing and they're driving around and then it, becomes a sex tool, which is fine, but potentially misleading if you're not careful. And the next thing you know, you've taken a sacred medicine, it becomes a recreational drug. And what happens is people keep pushing the boundaries. I last time I did this, I can drive a car on 2 hits of LSD. I'm like, yeah, right. Wait till you kill somebody,
Yeah.
And so people start getting cockier and cockier.
Yeah.
The ego is very, very dangerous with these things.
Yeah. Now, for me, it's always been like, I've always looked at them as almost like a reward or a culmination of a practice. You've developed this inner practice for a period of time where you've got, you've learned the tools to stabilize your own mind and work with your own mind and manage your own thoughts and manage your own inner process. And then you can have almost like a graduation where you can expand your consciousness and go to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's only to then be aware of what you have capacity for or abilities for all the time in your life.
Yes.
So then you go back to your regular life and now you're, I realize there's so much more around me than I realized before. And you start working with those things and you start integrating it and taking it to the next level. I mean, we talked about this at the Native Americans always said a year and a day from the last ceremony because they believed that's how much time was needed to really integrate it.
Yeah.
And there's so much danger in doing these things
too frequently.
I've always had such a reverence for them and a really healthy fear.
Yeah.
I greatly respect these plant medicines because I think it's one of the most foolish things you can do to misuse them and not to treat them in a sacred way that they are.
I also think they're one of the greatest tools for killing spiritual pride, because, a lot of people get a little up themselves with what they think they know about God or life, and they can get quite snooty, like a lot of yogis can be kind of in your face snooty because they think they're special, or vegans, for God's sakes, that kind of pride that my way's the right way, and if you eat meat you're a nobody, and it's sort of like the Christian, if you don't take Jesus as your savior you're going to burn in hell. And
try living in Alaska in the winter without meat.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Try that one. Your new ice plant. And so the point I'm driving at is when you do a proper ceremony and you got someone that's skilled, knowing where, like I connect to everyone's soul and say what's the right plant medicine and what's the right dose. And, it could be anything from eggnog to blow the lid off. And the point I'm making is you know very well, we've both had some deep tours to the dark side, and that's where you peel your shadow off layer by layer. And I give you an example. I thought I'd healed the pain of my brother's suicide. My brother committed suicide when I was 35, and I had some wickedly painful ceremonies where I just relived the pain and just didn't realize how much emotion and sadness was still, and grief was still in me. And the first time it happened, it shocked the hell out of me. But I remember just crying so hard, my body ached for days, literally. I felt like I'd been beat up. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad I healed that. I hope that never happens again. That happened 4 more times over the next couple, maybe 3 years. And I got to the point where I was just afraid to go into ceremony because I just am I going to have to go through this again? My point is, though, is, as you grow spiritually, you think, oh, I've healed myself. But you go next time, boom, you find a part of yourself that you didn't even know was there. You find a part of your family that you didn't know was there. You can find past life stuff you didn't know was there. And you come to a new level of humbleness, It's just like, I think one of the most devastating things that we've lost, aside from losing the elders in our cultures, we've lost our medicine men and our shaman.
Yeah.
And so what we've got a bunch of psychiatrists and psychologists prescribing drugs to children, for God's sakes. And we've got no elders guiding our youth and even our not youth. I mean, an elder in a tribal society is someone who has a lot of life experience. They've seen famine, they've seen war, they've seen everything.
Yeah.
And when mom and dad are out hunting and gathering for the first half of the day, the elders are educating the children so that they're got the most empathetic, most compassionate, most loving people guiding them so that they have a chance of surviving in the world. But now what we've got is a bunch of schools full of burned out teachers that are just doing what they're told to do, reading outdated books that don't educate people for anything that's important for life. And I think it's really a big part of what's going on in the world. And we've gotten to the point where people have such a misguided respect for authority that they don't really recognize real authority versus pseudo authority. I mean, anybody that believes Anthony Fauci is a real doctor is seriously misled. And, I could give you a long list of other names that go down that path as well.
Well, that's really what, inspired me in our relationship is, that sense of eldership. You being this person who had been around the block, who have explored life and passing that on to me.
Yeah.
And, that's what I ultimately realized in my career when I was 39 years old, having gone through that first divorce and now having, being with these young children and realizing I could probably do this job for a few more years. Maybe I could make a few more bucks, but I want to learn to do something that I can do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
For the next 50, 60 years. And I decided, well, I'm going to completely reinvent myself and start working on my eldership now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to become an elder at 39 so that by the time I get to 42, 45, 50, I've already developed that eldership and I could be there to not only have a job that's sustainable for the rest of my life, but to pass on this knowledge to somebody else. Because most people wind up working till they're 50 or 60 and then having to spend the money that they earned on their health and medical bills for the rest of their life. And they wind up that they don't know anything. And like you've said, the Joseph Campbell quote, they spend their whole life climbing the ladder to realize it's on the wrong wall.
Yeah, the ladder of success.
Yeah.
I'm a corporate executive, but I've got a heart attack waiting to happen, and I've lost connection to everything that's meaningful to me, but I sure have a nice car and a nice house.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I know that you're all aware of the importance of vitamin C. There is a mountain of research on it, but not all C is created equally. I love Paleo Valley's Essential C Complex because it is the real deal, bioavailable, and I wanted you to hear right from Autumn Smith, founder of Paleo Valley, why their Essential C Complex is so unique and something you definitely want for your family and your children. Autumn, tell us about your Essential C Complex.
Well, I was shocked to learn as a holistic nutritionist that 90%, over 90% of the vitamin C on the market is derived from genetically modified corn and then is processed with highly volatile acids. And so I knew I had to find a better way to get all of the powerful benefits of vitamin C. So what I did was I dove into the research and I found the 3 most vitamin C rich superfoods on the planet. That's unripe acerola cherry and camu camu and amla berry. And then I just packed them into capsules. And the benefits are amazing because you're not only getting vitamin C, but all of the other wonderful benefits that come from these amazing superfoods. So to get access to this complex, all you have to do is go to paleovalley.com and you can use the code CHEK15 at checkout. That's lowercase CHEK 15, and you can save 15% off.
This whole thing about the shaman, losing the shamanism is, we've talked about this, the marginalization of dreaming in our culture.
Yeah.
The Aboriginals and the shamans and the natives all were so in touch with the dreaming nature. And we just came off this beautiful dream workshop that you put together, where you showed us how the world is actually dreamed into existence.
Yes.
And we are here creating our own dreams each day.
Yes.
And, those dreams are not just at night, but there are our daydreams, our living dreams, our fantasies, our flirts. Yeah. Everything is part of a dream that we're having. And we've got so sort of chronically into this mainstream consensus reality of believing that we live in a mechanical universe and forgetting all of the dreaming nature that's around us. And, the shamans and the medicine men were in touch with that dreaming.
Yes. I say God dreams you into existence so you can dream yourself into existence.
Oh.
That's worth meditating on, right? God dreams you into existence so you can dream yourself into existence, which means to become a conscious co-creator in life and to have free will. So God gives us a soul so that we can have sentience and self-awareness. And the purpose of sentience and self-awareness is to go, wow, if I hurt somebody, it causes them pain, but if I love them, it causes them joy and connection, safety and security. If I think negative about myself, I feel bad about myself. If I think positive about myself and I love and care for myself and have 4 doctors, then I live in a way that exemplifies living and loving to other people. And then you realize, wow, when I set an intention and I really focus on it, I dream it into existence. So, the whole point of my dreaming workshop was to realize that the soul itself comes from beyond mind and life itself comes from beyond mind, because behind mind is pure consciousness or non-being, which, as we shared in the workshop, is significance because it's aware of being.
Yeah, and we learned that in the ceremony yesterday too.
Yes, we did.
When you're in touch with you as the dreamer,
yeah,
it's so empowering. I mean, life becomes so much more purposeful when you're realizing that you're there dreaming what's happening. Nobody's doing anything to you. It's all being dreamt up by you.
Yes.
And, they're just, for me at least, when I realize that, every animal that passes by, every person that I encounter, every little fantasy I'm having, every song that pops in my head,
yes,
every flirt that I have with a color or a flower or a bird or whatever, all of that is part of this dreaming process of awakening me to my full potential.
And I think that's a beautiful Mendel concept, and I think a great book for people to read of Arnold Mendel's is The Shaman's Body.
Amazing book.
Yeah, and the concept of flirting, people have lost the foreplay of life. They've it's just hurry up, make more money. I'm so tired. I've got to drink coffee at night to stay awake so I can watch junk television to escape the reality that I'm unconsciously creating. But when you start paying attention to beautiful, who was it? Michael. I think it was Michael. Michael was doing a film shoot. You, Kirsty, and Michael were doing the film shoot for our new Swiss ball video, and Michael said a hummingbird came and hovered right in front of his face. And here's an example. I was teaching a Chek level Chek instructors. Every couple of years we have a meeting for the Chek instructors. This was quite wild, and I had just given them each a drum. And we were all going outside to do a drum circle. And for some reason, as we were walking out the door, I think Penny called me on the phone, which I normally would have ignored it, but it was Penny. I picked up the phone and I was talking to Penny, and a hummingbird landed on my left shoulder and a robin landed on my right shoulder. And they just sat there. And my instructors were staring at me like, what the hell? And then when the birds took off, I was walking on the back sidewalk of the Heaven House, and there was a huge lizard, and it jumped off the wall onto my sweater.
Wow.
And my point is, that's flirting, right? That's the collective consciousness. That's Gaia. That's the collective talking to you and saying, inspiring you. You're moving in the right direction. You're teaching people to drum. You're teaching people to sing. You're teaching people to reconnect to their souls, to nature. And a bird comes and stares you in the eyes, or, like one of my friends was trying to find out what his power animal was. And I said, just pay attention to who's communicating to you. And about 2 days later, my friend calls me up. He goes, Paul, you're not going to believe it. I've been driving down the road. I'm on my way to see so-and-so. He says, for 5 miles, this hawk's been flying right above the hood of my car. Literally, I could reach out and touch it. For 5 miles, this thing's been flying right in front of my car. I said, guess what? Now you know who your power animal is. Right? How many people do you know that have had a hawk fly right above the hood of their car down the highway for 5 miles? I see, there's one, that's rare. So if you have an experience like that, you say, okay, what's the chances of that happening? If you did the math on that, it would be in the trillions to 1.
Yeah.
But you tell somebody else that's caught in their head, they say, oh, it's just coincidence.
Well, here's a quick way I could prove it to people.
Yeah.
If the listeners at home were just close, before they close their eyes, ask themselves a question that's on their mind.
Yeah.
Question about life. It could be a big question or a small question, something that's disturbing them.
Yeah.
Close their eyes for a moment. Let their mind go blank, like a Zen mind, and then open your eyes and scan your room and find the first thing in your room that catches your attention. And when you look at that object, look at the color of it, look at the shape of it, look at the quality of it, the feeling of it, the energy of it, and see if that object has any answer for what your question is.
I did it. You want to know what first thing that caught my mind?
What's that?
This empty smoke bag. I needed help from my beautiful assistant.
But when you do that, you realize that a real simple exercise of just letting your mind go blank, asking a question, and then just scanning your environment.
Yeah.
And the first thing that flirts with you is dreaming with you. Dreaming it. You're dreaming it up into your awareness to bring you some sort of meaning and some intention.
Yes. Or it's dreaming you.
Well, there's the magic.
Right? Is the hawk dreaming us? Or are we dreaming it? Here's the paradox of it. It's all God. And you remember I gave the definition of God from Blaise Pascal. God is a sphere whose circumference everywhere. Is a sphere whose circumference is nowhere, and a center whose presence is everywhere.
Yeah.
So if you really think about what that means, even a single point can have as much consciousness as any other point. In other words, empty space can have as much consciousness as the Buddha. because it's all God, or it wouldn't be here. There's no place God cannot be, or creation couldn't exist. So what am I saying? I'm saying the hummingbird, we think, oh, it's got a little tiny brain, but you're missing the point. It's a trillion, infinite number of points of consciousness to make the hummingbird, and we're an infinite number of points of consciousness. So you have to say, okay, well, why can't, there's another saying from a Zen master. I can't remember who it was. He says, if man can dream he's a butterfly, what makes you think a butterfly can't dream he's a man?
Right.
And that's exactly the point I'm making.
Yeah. And, if it's really, it brings up a few points for me, but if you can't look at a butterfly or look at a hummingbird and marvel at what was the source that created this technology,
absolutely,
this beauty. We're looking at it, we're marveling at our iPhones. Look at the beauty of what an acorn can create into an oak tree.
Right.
Or the beauty of a hummingbird flapping its wings at some incredible rate in front of your eyes.
Yes.
It's just the marvel out there is just amazing. And the other thing that I was thinking about was when you say a center who's everywhere, if you look at the point or you look at the center and then you blow that up, you could find a deeper center, and then you blow that center up and you find a deeper center up. And what did you realize? Well, the center or a point is infinite.
Yes.
And so that's the nature of God, is that infinity.
Which brings up one of the quotes that my soul gave me yesterday. If you want to find God, look into forever.
It's beautiful.
And there's the point that has a center, that has another center that goes on for infinite amounts. And then you look into forever. Because to find God means you have to objectify it, like churches have, like religions have. You've got to do this or God will burn you in hell. Well, then you've got a God that's got edges to it and has wants and needs. Well, how could God have wants or needs if God is God? God has everything and is everything. I mean, if that's not fullness, what is?
It really takes the omni out of God when you're putting limiting factors on it.
Knock the omni right the hell out of the equation, which means you don't have God. You got an intellectual idea.
Yeah.
And so when you lose touch with the beauty of the flower, the beauty of the hummingbird, even the beauty of healthy poop. I mean, I grew up on a farm. Most people are so afraid, like you and I were talking about, people washing their hands ceaselessly with all this COVID silliness and sanitizing the shit out of them, not realizing they're breaking down the bacterial barrier that protects their body from the very thing they're afraid of.
They'd be better off throwing their kid in the garden.
Yeah, they would. You just go roll in some dirt. And lo and behold, when you look at studies of the health of the immune system, what do they find? The more kids you have in the family, the healthier the immune system. If you have 2 or more pets, you have a healthy immune system.
Yep.
If you live on a farm where you're exposed to stink, bacteria, vomit, shit, and everything else, you got an even healthier immune system.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I haven't missed a day of work due to illness in my entire professional career of 38 years, and I grew up on a farm surrounded by stink and animals and guts and vomit and castrations,
dirty clothes,
and slaughters and dirty clothes and well water and every other damn thing, right?
Yeah. We live in such a sterilized world right now. It's really,
it's sickening.
Yeah.
It's dysfunctional. What are we trying to protect ourselves against except ourselves?
Invisible things we've never seen.
Right, yeah.
We don't even know they exist.
Yeah. Jason, another thing you did, which is quite interesting for a guy that's, a trader and you used to be a trader, but you went to my HLC training, professional training to be a holistic lifestyle coach.
Yeah.
Well, that must have been an interesting experience for you. I mean, especially after doing so much work with me privately. You used to ask me, well, am I going to learn anything in HLC2? I said, you're going to learn about how I coach people and what I think is important. So maybe you can share what the experience of taking HLC2, and you took it with my best instructor.
Yeah, I took it with Angie Chek, the one and only.
the chief.
Yeah, well, of course I had, I've had many years of training with you, so I knew a lot of the material very well. But what I learned in that was the extensive system and approach to evaluating a client.
Yeah.
Learning all of the questionnaires and all of the assessment forms and how to really pinpoint exactly what are the key factors that this client needs to focus on in this time. Where are they most out of balance? Which one of the 4 doctors, which one of the foundational principles are they most out of balance in? And where do they have the most stress in their life? And how to most effectively address that from the get-go.
Yes.
So yeah, the systematic approach of how to assess somebody in a very, very methodical way.
Yeah.
Which for me as a trader and as a data
Analyst
and somebody who really enjoys that, I was so impressed by just the extent of your surveys and your questionnaires and the amount of work that you demand out of a client. In order for a client to actually even become a client in the Chek system, they probably have to do at least 6 to 10 hours of answering questionnaires.
Yeah.
Something like that on their own time.
Very deep questionnaires.
Very
too,
deep
especially
questionnaires.
with you're working with me, where you get into archetypes and family trauma and family history, such as Mark Wulin's work, and myth development,
Archetypes,
archetypal assessment, primal, core prostitute,
dreaming,
child, victim, saboteur, imago Dei, father, mother, child, identifying what your working archetypes are, so you know what's guiding you or when you're off your soul's path. Because just like I was sharing with the dreaming workshop, if you want to know what a dream's about, you got to look at what a person's not getting at a conscious level, because the dream's trying to get something to consciousness that's being walled off.
Yeah.
And you notice how I started the workshop. I started the workshop by making a very simple point. I quoted Jung, "Your unconscious will meet you on the outside until you meet it on the inside." Okay? So then I said, let's talk about 4 doctors. How many of you know what makes you happy but aren't doing it for yourself every day? Almost every hand in the room went up. How many of you know you should be getting more sleep but you're not doing it? Almost every hand went up. How many of you know you're over or under exercising but keep doing it anyhow? Almost every hand went up. Right? I went through all 4 doctors, and almost every person in the room raised their hand on one or more of those doctors. And I say, okay, good. You're not listening to your unconscious.
And this really gets back to, what's your unmet task?
What is your unmet need?
And what's your secret story?
And your secret story.
And what was the unmet task of your parents that you're now fulfilling in your life based on your programming? And
Jung said, all children are tasked with the unfinished business of their parents' lives.
Yeah. And Mendel talks about the fact that, we think we get this inheritance where, maybe if we're lucky enough, our parents leave us a little bit of money or maybe, a house or something. But what they also leave us is psychological inheritance, where everything that they believed and all of their belief systems and all of their dogma and all of their ways of doing things gets passed down to us. And, one of the things that's inspired me in my life the most is trying to get off that wheel.
Yes.
So that I don't have to pass that on to my children.
Yes.
I think that's really important, getting off the wheel of these perpetual belief systems and dogmas that could go back for millennium.
Yes. You've got 3 kids now. I've got 3 kids. I've got a almost 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 42-year-old, and a grandson. And you've got, what, a 2 and
a 6 and an 8.
6 and an 8.
Yeah.
What do you think we need to be concerned about for our children's future today?
Well, this is a really scary time. I mean, I'm highly concerned for my children.
Me too.
My children were in a Waldorf school, and I couldn't even, which is, as one of the best places you can get an education, and I couldn't even send them there because, the Waldorf school is mandating masks and, 6 feet distance and all this, virtual learning and all this crap.
Which goes against everything that Rudolf Steiner teaches.
Yeah, and it's amazing, I don't want to beat up on the Waldorf school too much, but they had this real big policy of not having any kind of computer technology or TV or anything until the child's at least 12 years old or something, and then lo and behold, as soon as COVID hits, everything goes virtual and everything is computer.
Yeah.
And so they just threw that out like like it was nothing. And so, I think really educating our youth on the principles of the four doctors, of these great teachings, like we should learn the four doctors in kindergarten. We should, the most important thing we can learn is how to take care of ourselves and how to take care of the planet. We should be learning the Vedas and in Taoism, and these ancient texts in elementary school.
Yes.
We grow up without even knowing these amazing 8,000-year-old texts even exist until we're lucky enough, maybe in our 40s or never, to learn them.
And if you join an organized religion, you will get chastised and excommunicated if you start talking about looking at books on Buddhism or whatever your dogma is that you're indoctrinated into. There are defense mechanisms very well put in place so you don't look into any other belief system.
Yeah. All of the great cultures talk about every action you do, making it purposeful, in thinking about how it'll affect the next 7 generations.
Yes.
We have a crisis, a disease of thinking that we live in a one lifetime universe.
Yes.
That we come here, we only have one life. We get one shot and then we're going to heaven or hell.
Yes.
But the reality is that we're here for eternity.
Yes.
And if we acted in through our dharma, acting in a way that we thought about every action of how that might affect the next 7 generations, that's really what we need to get back to.
Totally.
Not what's going to affect us in the moment. Not how much resources we could drill and how much money we can make, but how are we going to leave the world a better place for our children? Because quite honestly, as a parent, I'm quite concerned for our children's future. I mean, the oceans are polluted, the air's polluted, the water's polluted, the food's polluted,
the soil.
Our politics are polluted, our science is polluted, our medicine's polluted. I mean, it's
education, banking. We spent trillions of dollars on nuclear weapons and fighter jets and exotic weapons, while 4 billion people on this planet make less than $7 a day and don't have enough the resources to meet their basic survival needs,
and don't even have enough as much space as a closet,
right,
to live in,
right.
And we're sending billions of dollars to go to explore Mars, which is kind of a joke when we really need to be taking care of our own planet.
And there's nothing on Mars.
Yeah, except a lot of heat.
It's a barren planet that we probably previously destroyed with the same level of ignorance as a metaphor. But here we are on this blue pearl with no life that we can recognize for as far as we can see with our so-called advanced technology, and we're destroying it and not thinking of even 1 generation. So here's an example of what happens when you think about 7 generations. I'm 60 years old. I remember when kids only needed 3 vaccinations. Then I remember when it was 27. Now it's 42. Then you look at the COVID. Oh, you just have to get this shot and you'll be okay. Oh, no, then you have to have this booster. Then there's this variant. Then there's that variant. Okay, so everyone listening should ask yourself this question. Look at how many boosters have been implemented in the last 2 years and say, what is it going to be 7 generations from now? Well, you're just going to be a walking pincushion.
Yeah, and this is it's a total joke, because if you look at the people that are actually affected by this, most of them have 2 to 3 comorbidities.
They're
right?
already ready to die.
Most of them have diabetes, and the answer is not, hey, let's go out in the sun, let's hug our neighbor, let's grow some food, let's drink some water, let's move our bodies. It's no, let's put a mask on, let's stay indoors. Let's keep the bars and the pot shops open, but not focus on the essential businesses of the mom and pop stores. The Amazons and the Walmarts are killing it, while all of the family-owned businesses are put out of business. It's just a complete crisis, and I think I'm really I've lived a good life, and I know you have too. And at this point, I realize that if I died today, obviously I would want to miss out on my kids growing up, but I feel privileged enough that I've lived a good enough life. But I am deeply concerned about the future of our children, and I think that we really need to be teaching them from the get-go how to live in reciprocity with the earth, how to understand the laws of nature, and how to understand their own bodies. This is way more important than any kind of left brain education we can teach them. Because if we don't do this, there may not even be those opportunities in 20 or 30 years. We're really at a tipping point on Earth. And if we don't make a change, if we don't start thinking about our children and their children, and even a place for us to reincarnate back into,
Right.
I think we're gonna be in for a deep problem.
And why do we need to teach them about food? Because Dr. Diet builds a temple of body for your mind. Dr. Diet builds a temple of body for your mind. We raise and eat our food with love, it makes our chemistry. We raise and eat our food with love, it makes our chemistry. Add good water and a smile, be filled with energy. Add good water and a smile, be filled with energy. Eat good organics and be wise. You are what you eat. You are what you eat. Yum, yum. Yeah, baby. Start right there. And Elliot Hulse's brother, Eric Hulse, is a school teacher.
Yeah.
And he really impressed me. He took HLC2, went back to the school he teaches in, and started a 4 doctors club. They practiced singing the songs. He had them growing plants, taught them how to do basic gardening and farming, and did all the 4 doctor practices, and he's probably still doing it today. And I was so grateful to see a school teacher do that. It was just so lovely.
Yeah, start with the little things. Teach your children how to have gratitude for their food.
Yeah.
Do a food prayer.
We do every day.
Go out, us too. Go outside. Pick up some garbage. Teach the kids about the importance of nature and how they're a part of it. It's such a lost thing. I mean, indigenous cultures, they graded themselves not by how much money they made, but how much they're nurturing and feeding each other. How many people have you fed? How many people are you taking care of?
Yeah.
How many people are you supporting?
Yes.
Not what your title is or how much money you've made or the size of your bank account.
How many exotic cars do you have in the garage or whatever, we were fortunate because Mana's Steiner School, when they did the mask mandates, the only way they could not have the kids wear masks was to move the whole school outside. So these kids show up in the morning, no matter how cold it is, they got to put their jackets on, and they go outside and they spend the entire day outside in the dirt, in the gardens, watering. They bake food. They have little ovens. They learn to cook. They learn to paint. They learn to make crafts. They learn how to use garden tools and move dirt, wheelbarrows. And so Mana loves it, I'm thinking, must be, some days it's 100 degrees out there. Some days it's cold and they're shivering. But they really learn to be in the world and connect to the elements. And I don't know if there's any other school around that was that committed to following Steiner's principles that literally moved the kids outside to protect them.
We've completely lost touch with that. I mean, we sit here in these 24-hour light environments. Can you imagine, 100 years ago, we would have been so much more in touch with darkness.
Oh, yeah.
When darkness came at night, maybe you had a candle, maybe you had a fire, but there was this whole period of darkness. If you wanted to make a fire, you had to go out, collect firewood. And usually it was not by cutting down trees, but it was taking fallen branches or, branches of trees that were sick or dying and bringing them back, making a fire, making an offering in the smoke to send up to the laws of nature, the personified laws of nature that support all of us in a purposeful way.
Yeah.
And then taking the ash from the fire and putting it back in the soil.
Yeah, the wheel of life.
We have so lost this reciprocity and this connection with taking care of the soil that we're literally raising dumber and dumber people because of that.
Absolutely. Dumb enough not to pay attention to what's happening to them right now.
Yeah, and Weston A. Price showed that,
Absolutely.
in his work with the, studying the
native
diets and the African diets, and how far we've come. And that was I don't even know, 100 years.
1938.
Yeah, it's almost 90 some odd years ago.
Yep, long time ago. P3OM by Biooptimizers is hands down one of the most important supplements to have on you everywhere you go. If you're traveling, if you go to work,
if you're going to friend's house to eat, this product will knock out food poisoning and almost any kind of gut disorder from viruses, bacteria, fungi, whatever could irritate your gut so quickly. It's mind-blowing. I have been using this product since Wade Lightheart first turned me on to it, and he's the formulator of it. And I've got Wade here to tell us how it works, but I just want you to hear it from me. I have all my clients use this. I try to get it to friends, to family members, because it is really like your own bodyguard. So, Wade, how in the world does this thing work so well every time?
Well, as you know, we're very research oriented, and we have literally a university in Croatia that we do microbiome testing with our labs of PhDs to find out what's the most effective formulation. And we are quickly moving into the post-antibiotic world where we need to cultivate super probiotics. We all heard of super bad bacteria in hospitals and stuff that are antibiotic resistant. Well, what we did, we worked with a medical doctor that was able to take an aggressive strain of L. plantarum, which is a very aggressive strain, and then put it through almost like a BUDS camp, a Navy SEALs training, where we subjected this particular probiotic to a toxic environment. We ran a sine wave through it, and out of that survived only about somewhere between 2 and 3%. We then take that and grow it on very special food. We feed them, just like you would feed a great athlete, you feed them special food, and the probiotics develop unique capabilities. We have a US patent that is so powerful, I can't read it on the airwaves because we'd get canceled. But what I can say is when you put P3OM in your body, it goes out and breaks down any undigested protein, whether it's in your gut or through your blood system. And it becomes your Navy SEALs defense force, if you will, to go out and wipe out whatever pathogen might come in your body. You just need more of these guys to overwhelm it. It takes it out. It cleans up any messes. And for the last 18 years, I've been using P3OM daily. And I can honestly say, I've never been sick during that time. If I feel something coming on, I just double down my dosage, take 4 caps every night. If I'm traveling, I take twice that. And it's been great. A lot of our people do it, and it's one of our best-selling products, and it's available to your audience. Just go to p3om.com/living4d, put in Paul10, get a 10% discount. And if it's not the best probiotic you've ever had in your life, you get 100% of your money back. That's from us at Bioptimizers. That's our guarantee for you.
Go get it. It's for real. I love the stuff. Thank you, Wade. Well, to close our fun and beautiful conversation, I think we can just go back to the dreaming, I tell people all the time, if there's one thing we all need, it's what I call the dream board. We have to have healthy soil, or we can't have healthy food. We got to have healthy water, or we can't have healthy life or food. We got to have clean air, or we can't breathe properly, and we poison ourselves. And we all need each other. I think one of the things that's been so sickening is all the segregation that COVID's caused, segregating families, breaking families up, causing, the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. And, the way I handle that is I say, congratulations, we're in an experiment. The vaccinated, they're the study group. The unvaccinated are the control group. So if you want to be in the study group, go ahead and see what happens when you experiment with an experiment.
Right.
A double experiment, an untested, unproven, new, never before tried, dangerous, toxic cocktail that wouldn't meet any scientific standards of any real science whatsoever. And I'll be the control group, and we'll see who comes out the better.
Yeah, and in the name of science, you would think people would be excited about that, right?
Yes.
Because that's true discovery.
It is true discovery.
That's what, if we're not here to really figure out how to get out of the system, then what are we doing,
Yeah.
I think, taking away people's choice to what they put into their own body, how they manage their own lives, I think that's really a crime.
It's a removal of life itself.
Yeah.
What do you got if you have no choice? You're not a human. You're a machine, and that's part of the problem. We've got this scientocracy, this technocratic revolution that wants to biohack people right down to their thoughts, feelings, and emotions, chip you,
monitor every spend you do, control you with what you can buy, can't buy, where you can go, not go. I mean, who in their right mind thinks that is life and freedom and living, and where's the creativity in that? That is utterly turning yourself over to somebody else's nightmare.
Yeah.
What do you get out of that? What do your kids get out of it? What does the future look like? The future, it looks like a lot of scary friggin' movies is what it looks like. Like the zombie apocalypse would be a great example.
Yeah.
So I think we all need to dream bigger together, and we need to dream together, and we need to, like you said, think 7 generations ahead. And I don't think you need to be very much of a genius to know that there isn't even going to be 7 generations if we don't clean up our act immediately.
Yeah. And, with that dreaming, it's surround yourself with your dream team.
Yes.
Finding the people in your life that are harmonious with your goals and values and helping you get to your dream, right?
Yes.
Surrounding yourself with, stating your dream to the people in your family, to the people that are your friends or coworkers, and then finding the ones that are in alignment with your values and surrounding yourself with those kinds of people.
And we got to get rid of all this racist bullshit.
And all the polarization. I mean, this whole Democrat, Republican, vax, unvax, all of this splitting is such a smoke and mirrors. We're all in this together. Mm-hmm. And until we literally wake up and hold hands and realize that we the only way out of this is together. And the 99% is stronger than the 1%.
Totally. And the thing is that people got to remember that they can be part of the 99%.
Yeah.
Because if you fall into the trap, then you actually become the doormat of the 1%.
Right. And as David Icke talks about, we are the base of the pyramid that the 1% sits on.
Right.
Right. So they're on literally standing on our shoulders. So we're the ones who decide on what happens if we wake up and realize our own power.
And the other thing is they're using our tax dollars and our choices to spend money on their companies to keep them doing this. I mean, that's one of the biggest paradox. All this torture for the last 2 years has been funded by us.
Yeah.
I mean, wait a minute. If you don't like the dangerous drugs out there, quit buying them. How many people had to die from Oxycontin and all this other crap?
Oh my God.
Before people finally woke up. I'm like, okay, well, look, pay attention. Here's an example of truth. I've got a book in my library. I wish I remembered the title. But these doctors, these psychologists in New York, they were the first to identify what's called body dimorphism, where they took anorexics and had them draw pictures of themselves on a piece of paper, and they did the same thing with bodybuilders, and they found that bodybuilders always drew pictures of themselves much smaller to scale than they really were, and anorexics drew themselves as these great big people, so they saw that there was this warping of the mind.
Yeah, and the same thing happens in their dreams as well.
Yeah, sure, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
And so I think this was the same group that figured this out, but anyhow, what they did was they took kids that had ADD and ADHD and related disorders, and they took them on a field trip once a week out into the forest and let them run around on trails and just have fun in the forest. And they found one trip to nature a week knocked out ADD, ADHD, and most of these other diagnoses that kids are on drugs for and getting put into the back of the classroom or kicked out of school or whatever. And what does it show you? We have lost touch with what we are. We are the world.
Yeah.
We are the sun. We are the moon. And when you lock people in buildings and make them stare at computer screens and eat junk food all day, they lose connection with the greater self.
And now they have a name for it too, nature deficit disorder.
That's it. That's what it is.
Which is wild. And Dr. Karim and Dareya in their headquarters in Egypt at the Biogeometry headquarters, they have like a pavilion type biogeometry classroom, and they take children that have severe autism and severe spectrum disorders, and they bring them into this space, and for 24 hours, from being in the space to 24 hours after, they're symptom free.
Yes,
from being in a classroom that's not like a square.
Yeah,
right?
That's biogeometry tuned.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that we did to the Native Americans by taking them out of the circular tents and putting them in the reservations and the square buildings.
Sick.
And so, we have our kids in square buildings, we live in square houses, and we don't realize that we are the environment.
Yes.
And that, we are an open system that that is interacting with everything around us.
Yes. And for people that don't understand, when you're talking about a round tent versus a square, you're talking about the influence of shape on the flow of energy.
Yeah.
And if a simple way to think of it is, okay, if you pick up a trumpet and blow in it, it's got a shape, and that shape makes a specific sound. But if you pick up a French horn, you get a different shape. And if you pick up a flute, you get a different shape. And all of them transform wind into a different sound, which is a different expression of energy.
Yeah.
And so if you are in a square, it contains energy. It holds it in. If you're in a circle, it moves energy around. So it's flowing in a circle. But a square is like, if you put water in a swimming pool and you don't circulate it, it stagnates.
Yep.
So if you're in buildings that stagnate energy, then it stagnates the energy in you and you start rotting essentially inside. It breaks down your biological connection to the flow of energy in the environment.
Yeah. And through the physics of quality, that you can see that sound and shape and color and taste, these are all overlapping energies that can be like synonymous for each other, right? And so when we break down what we are, at the beginning there was the word. We are sound. We are frequency. We are shape. We are color. We are taste. We are all these senses and things. And so just waking up to the impact of all this and how it's affecting us is really important.
Yeah. Well, we've had a phenomenal conversation. Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.
We've never had a shitty conversation in 11 years. So
no, we've always had fun.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point. We can have fun healing. We can have fun recreating. We can have fun awakening to what our children need. We can have fun biogeometrizing our houses. We can have fun planting gardens. It's an interesting statistic I've got right here in 2 books on that shelf of my old rare books. I've got some books written in the 60s, but they did surveys of health, rates of health, of illness and disease during the First and Second World War. And they found that approximately 50% of the people during the First and Second World War, due to food shortages, had to grow food in their backyards, and the disease rates went to the floor. But as soon as the wars were over and all the food factories started up, then the disease rates rose back up again.
Yeah. And the big thing about that, too, was the women were now doing the farming.
Now the women were farming.
Right, so now they're making love with the plants and singing to the plants and watering them just like a woman would do, while the men were off overseas.
Killing each other.
Yeah, like men usually do.
In the name of nationalism.
And religion.
In religion, yeah. But
just to touch on that point about being healthy, I mean, that's the one thing that I think it's the biggest takeaway that I learned from you. When I first came to you in 2010, my life was very dry.
Yeah.
I took exercise and diet. I was super, super rigid.
Yeah.
And I come to visit you, and we're hanging out, and we're doing Tai Chi, and we're painting, and we're watching a movie at night, and we're making popcorn, and we're putting butter on it, and we're a little bit extra crispy in the popcorn. And I'm like, wow, being healthy is fun.
It is fun.
It's fun. And when you start to feel that energy in your body, that creative force, and when your body when you don't really feel your body anymore because it feels so good, right?
Yeah.
And you're having so much fun in your life.
Yeah.
And you have so much energy to create. It becomes so beautiful and so playful.
That's the feeling of freedom. See, most people feel their body because it hurts all the time. But when you don't feel your body because it feels good, it's called freedom.
Yeah.
The way you feel your body is when it talks to you and it says, okay, let's go for a walk, or okay, let's not work out so hard today, or let's drink water instead of coffee. You just got to listen.
Yeah.
I mean, when you realize how much wisdom is in the body, you're talking about 4.9 billion years of evolution. And somebody thinks that they can just give you a shot and make it better, or cut something out and make it better, or biohack it and make it better. Okay, good. You think you can biohack 4.9 billion years of evolution? good luck. Try 4 doctors first. Well, Jason, what a dream to have been able to share all this time with you, and I know you and I will be doing this forever. Even when we're done, we'll find you on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to be many generations ahead. What are you dreaming into existence for yourself now?
Yeah. Well, I'm working, in the world as a practitioner of all of the things you've taught me. I'm studying deeply in process work, process-oriented psychology. I'm working as a therapist there, helping clients with kind of holistic health, wealth, and getting in touch with their dreaming. I also am dreaming up working with organizations and working with really polarized groups. I think one of the biggest things that we need with all of these different split groups is somebody to sit in the middle and be a neutral facilitator. So I've been practicing with all sorts of groups. I've been working with Russians and Ukrainians and trying to help facilitate their problems in the war. So I have my hands in all sorts of stuff, from biogeometry to tarot to process work to shamanism to drumming and
making music.
And I'm just ready to share it with the world and available to share the knowledge that I've received from all of the great teachers like yourself.
Thank you.
It was like,
thank you for being a good student and sharing it. It's people like you that give me the peace that I can die knowing that I did my best to leave the world a little better than I found it.
Yeah.
That's important to me.
And for me, it was like being lost in the desert and hear somebody coming with their hands open with BG3 water in it, giving me a drink. And so for me, it's like, I feel so honored to have received this information and, from you and all of my great teachers, that I feel this, I wouldn't say burden, but this responsibility to pass it on. And to be an elder to the next generation and to pass on this great knowledge. I'm so grateful to be part of this lineage of wise people, of all these wonderful teachings that have been passed down. And I feel like it's my duty, as well as I think others should feel this way, to learn and pass on this knowledge so it's not lost.
The other thing that I think is important is we've got to get the wise people of the world more airtime.
Yeah.
We've got to somehow figure out how to get the dumb shit television off and the useless, distracting garbage and get people on TV that can really educate people. And we've got to stop making money and profits more important than communication, community, reciprocity, and nurturing nature and supporting each other. That's one of the reasons I love Gaia TV, because you can go there and you can spend hours with Bruce Lifton. We can spend hours with Greg Braden,
Joe Dispenza, Jeffrey Mishlove, Alan Watts, anybody.
Yeah, and Regina Meredith and George Norrie and there's just like the list of really dialed in people, from the greatest scientists and shaman to healers to sound healers. I mean, I think Gaia should be mainstream education for people from any age on.
Yeah.
And we've got to figure out together, the thing is if we stop watching garbage and devoting ourselves to creating and or using the systems that are out that do deliver wisdom, we will make a transition. But, it all begins with education. You can't change a paradigm without a higher level of education.
Yeah, and you've taught me this, but we live in our government is run by corporation.
Yes,
and so ultimately it's all about money.
Yeah,
and so the number one power we have is not voting in the election, but it's how we spend our dollars.
Yep.
So if we go out there and we start supporting the Gaia TVs and we start supporting the Organifis and the Symbioticas and all of these wonderful businesses producing these great products, those are the companies that they're going to thrive. We have to say we're not going to support the garbage anymore. We're not going to support the crap that's on TV. We're going to support the good networks, the good companies that care about the earth, that create good products, and that will ultimately influence politics and the rest, because it's all about the money.
We got to get rid of this whole silly horseshit commercial farming and Bill Gates factory farming and making tomatoes and vegetables that produce vaccines and pesticides inside of them. I mean, that's just,
polluting space.
People think that that's intelligent. How about regenerative farming? Regenerate, rehabilitate the soil. A real farmer makes the soil better every year, but commercial farmers and chemical farmers destroy it. And we're almost out of topsoil. I mean, when you start...
We've totally crushed the middle of a whole middle of our country. Thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres of topsoil completely lost. Where I think, we're probably on the verge of famine.
Oh, of course we are. And they call this science. Everything they say, that they back this with what they call science, but it's purchased science. It's not science. It's propaganda masquerading as science.
Yeah.
We've got to get back to the earth. We've got to get, when you look at people like the Amish, a lot of people look at the Amish and say, oh my God, that's silly. Who would want to live that way? But you know what? The Bible says something pretty profound. The meek shall inherit the earth. And that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I think the Amish are probably doing pretty good in COVID.
They probably didn't get any of it. They probably
didn't change their life very much either.
Watch television or get stuck to their cell phone or brainwashed. And so I think, we've got to start looking at people that stuck to the basics and say, I'm not saying we need to go back to buggies and carts. What I am saying, so everybody's clear, we can use the same exact technology that's destroying the world in positive ways. Your phone can be the gateway to health, education, and freedom, or it can be the gateway to death and destruction. Your computer, all the money we spend on the military, what if we took the military and tasked it with cleaning up the soils, cleaning up the oceans, and using advanced military technology to increase our awareness of how to bring ourselves back into harmony instead of preparing to destroy each other?
I went to a town meeting in my town, and a group of anthroposophists, and Dr. Thomas Cowan was there. Mm-hmm. And I was there presenting a little bit about biogeometry to the group. And, here are people that are raging against, not wanting to have, cell phone towers and 5G come into their town, which I completely understand. But my point to them was, look, we have to go with what's happening. Mm-hmm. I want to be the first town to bring a 5G tower into my town, but to harmonize it with biogeometry.
Yeah. Because
then the same technology that's blasting an enormously disharmonious signal could be blasting a healing frequency to the whole town.
Yes.
So it's working with technology. We have the simple solutions to make these technologies healing for us and have them be really expansive in our communities. Like you said, it's not about going back to the buggies.
No.
It's about just working with the laws of nature and harmonizing that with technology.
Yeah. And we got to quit this, what is Klaus Schwab's guy, Harari, I forgot his first name. I get sick watching this guy talk. This guy thinks he's going to biohack everybody. He's teaching the rich that they can control everybody. He says all this God and soul stuff is ridiculous. I'm like, you're knocking out everything that the human spirit is connected to. And just because you can't weigh it and measure it doesn't mean it's not real. I mean, can you weigh and measure love? Let me see you pull that trick. I say to these left-brain scientist types all the time, so you don't believe if you can weigh and measure something that it's real? And their answer is yes. I say, okay, good. Weigh and measure your love for your wife and your kids. How do you measure that one? And they just go blank. I go, yes, there's a lot more to life than you can weigh and measure. And the things that are the most important are what's invisible that moves between us. Mm. And when you focus on the love and the possibility, you can't see your thoughts, but they're there. And they're either positive or they're negative. And if you change your mind, you change what you see. If you change your orientation to your heart, you see something that's immeasurable but moves mountains. And I think we got to get back to moving mountains together. And I don't mean literally moving the dirt, but I mean moving the obstacles that are either going to give our kids a future or let's face it, we're dancing on the edge of the 6th mass extinction. And I say, let's rattle, drum, plant, clean, and honor the life that supports us, and as the Buddhists would say, the great chain of being, because we depend upon the little ones beneath us, and instead of poisoning them and killing them, we've got to nurture them and love them. And I think this is the Great Awakening. I think, the term the Great Reset has been retermed the Greater Reset by people that are smart enough to know what the opportunity is. And I say, this is the Greater Reset.
We need to turn that Great Reset into the Great Turn.
The Great Turn, yes.
And the natives say a warrior is one who's not at the effect of anyone at any place at any time, who shows up with courage, which is to be who you really are, to show up to be yourself. And it's all time that we show up with who we really are, and we're not at the effect of anyone at any place at any time, and become warriors.
Yes, I think we should finish the way we started. Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, don't you know? Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, don't you know? Dr. Happy sets your rhythms set your pressure, and your rhythms and your pressure make your flow. And your rhythms and your pressure make your flow. Ho, ho. Aho.
Aho, Great Spirit.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm working on a website, but right now the best way is to email me. We could put that in the show notes.
Okay.
I'm going to be coming out with a lot of different stuff online. I've been kind of in a hermiting stage for the last few years, really trying to, which I recommend to a lot of people, to get off social media, to get off all the junk, and to really go find themselves, and then from that place emerge back into the world. So,
and do your dreaming, right?
Yeah.
Get quiet so you can do. Don't be afraid to be alone with yourself. First place to find God is right inside of you. And I'm not talking about a religious God. I'm talking about forever. I'm talking about a mystery. The closest way to get to that mystery is to love. To love.
To love.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. You've been one of the biggest blessings in my whole life.
You've been one of the greatest lights in my life and one of my best friends, and I just can't thank you enough for everything, our friendship, our relationship, the teaching, and it's just been such a joy and honor to be your student and to many more years together.
Hey, you've been my teacher in a lot of ways too, man. I've had to go through some challenges with you that I had to really get still and say, how do I help him through this? This is, I've had to surf some tidal waves with you, and you've made me have to get very still so that I was not misleading you in any way.
And as Ross says, they say the word teach/learn.
Yeah.
It's one. It's not separate. It's one together. We're always teaching and we're always learning. And the great teachers are always learning.
Yeah, I've learned all the time, man. My kids are my great teachers.
Oh, they are. And that's another thing about children, looking at them as your teacher.
Yeah.
Of course you're there to kind of guide them, but to realize that this is probably, you're on a iPhone 6 and they're on an iPhone 13, coming in with a much higher technology, probably a much more advanced soul with a lot more to offer and much more connected to source. So, wake up to the brilliance in your children. Trust them, trust the intuitions of their bodies, of their likes and dislikes. If they say they like a certain food or don't like a certain food, allow the wisdom of their body to come through, and don't hit them with any of your dogma. Find what they love to do, find what they're instinctually good at, and support that and educate them. Help them find what they love to do so that they could sing their song in the world.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you to the sponsors for the podcast, because we love you and you make amazing products. And thank you to all of you for anything you buy from the podcast sponsors. It helps support the podcast. And they all are beautiful people with very sustainable practices and real deep concern for each of you and the planet.
Yeah, and I love their products too.
They are very good.
Amazing stuff.
I won't, you know what? If I have to go broke to run the podcast, I'll do that before I'll sell anything I don't believe in. Because like you said, it's where we spend our money that is our vote. There is no real political vote anymore. You vote with your wallet. You vote with your with your money.
Yeah. So take that stimulus check and put it to something good.
Yes. And I think we can all dream big together. It's time.
Let's do it.
Aho.
Aho, Great Spirit.
It is done. It is done.
It is done.
We are safe. We are home. We are whole.
Thank you.
Aho.
Thank you for listening to Living 4D with Paul Chek and today's guest, Jason Pickard. You can connect with Jason via his website, jasonpickard.org. That's JASONPICKARD.org. Follow Paul on Instagram at paul.chek, on Twitter at paulchek, or on his YouTube podcast channel, youtube.com/living4D with Paul Chek. You can watch more on Paul's blog at paulcheksblog.com and get your free subscription to Chek videos and more at the Chek Institute's new media site, chekiva.com. You can read the show notes and find links to the resources mentioned in this episode at chekinstitute.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review at the top of the show page on Spotify or at the bottom of the show page if you are listening on Apple Podcast.